What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be with Genfinity, interviewing a multitude of projects across Web3. Today, I'm really excited to be we're going to be diving deep into a lot of different ecosystem projects within Hedera. This first kind of half hour here, we've got Earthlings. So we're going to be talking about gamification. We've got Grelf coming on in about 30 minutes. We have Swisscoast and Bonzo and HBAR coming on at 11 a.m. Eastern for a good hour on DeFi. We have Jim Nazar from Acoer coming on at noon for about a half hour to talk healthcare. And then we've got Dovu rounding us up to talk ESG, carbon credits, and sustainability, all built on the Hedera network. That being said, let's get into Earthlings here. I know these are kind of rapid fire, so either Patrick or Joey, if you guys want to just tell us a little bit about what Earthlings is, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I'll kick it off then there. Yeah, so that's actually always a question that you can answer in many ways because we do so much. So we are first and foremost a game where we really try to emphasize the gaming aspect and the beauty of the game to really get the Web 2 quality on Web 3 as well. So we're an open multiplayer experience, actually, I would say, and where we really what we show now is also what you see is what you get. So I've got some footage lined up already. So for people who don't know what we look like and what we are building, it might be good to show in a second what they can expect when they look at our game. So we are a game, but we also implement the power of Web3 in several ways. One of them is ownership. We have some unique ownership features, actually, where you can really own a whole town or a village, where you really interact with the people that own a plot in your village or town. But as said, the focus is actually gaming, but it entails so much that I can already talk just for an hour on the things that we will be doing there. So, but maybe we got a video lined up. Maybe it's good for people who don't know us yet to see what the look and feel is, for instance, just for a village. And later on, I would love to see to show another trailer that we didn't feature just yet.
Sure. So I will play this first video that you guys have lined up here. And yeah, we'll go from there. We're testing the boundaries of technology, gentlemen, in real time. It looks awesome, though, Patrick. So can you tell us a little bit about what we kind of just watched?
Yeah, I was questioning if it was lagging with you guys as well.
So, yeah, a little bit. It was like 3 or 4 seconds and then a tiny lag. But I mean, the the quality came through. But yeah, tell us a little bit about the towns, the villages. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we try to show. Many games do it the other way around. They first build a very cool trailer, and then you just have to wait and see if the game looks the same. What we do, we first build the gameplay, and from that, while we are building, we're showing the community what they can expect. So if you own a village in Earthlings land, this is what it will look like. So you will really know what to expect already early on. We have a town trailer as well, and a city trailer, but all these three actually are already still being upgraded, because the community wants to see what you're building, of course, but it's always a work in progress. So it's gonna look better even. So yes, actually that. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. So I
was
know we
lagging,
have. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it was lagging. I thought it was frozen. So sorry.
No, yeah. So I know we have these files loaded up. So next time we'll have to just do screen share to make sure these things come across. I've seen a lot of kind of tweets that you guys have had, and I know we have 2 other videos lined up. So as soon as you guys want us to trigger these, I'd love to share these ones too. But I know that within Earthlings, players within the game have the option of actually owning a bank. But there's aspects you guys are already doing right now to participate in banking with what you guys are doing. Which one of you guys kind of wants to tell? I've seen the tweets recently about kind of the banking ecosystem stuff you guys are doing. Talk to us a little bit about how people can participate already.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is if you go to earthlings.land, you can link all of this. So we have a whole section for Steam. So if you hold certain NFTs, you can go to a daily claim and you see those. You go through a disclaimer. Just tells you a little bit about it. And right now, we still have over 2 million Steam left to claim. So if you're connected to your wallet, you go to the claim page with certain NFTs, you can collect those. And that amount should last several more months. But what we've just added is this banking system. We've told town owners that they'd be able to own a bank when the big game opens. And we didn't want people to have to wait until the full launch of the game to start participating and actively being part of what we're doing. So we wanted to create something that's pretty much staking. We wanted to keep it non-custodial. So all we have to do is have you connect your wallet. If you have a wallet with any Steam in it, you could have 10 Steam and you can participate in banking. If you go to that, so you start at Steam and you go to banking system, connect your wallet, you'll see here, it will show you once you're connected how much Steam you have. If it says 0 and you haven't connected before, you'll simply enter your email here. As soon as you send it, it will put you in the system. You can refresh, and then you're right in there. So across the top, how this works. Anybody that holds Steam and they have their wallet registered, they are instantly non-custodial collecting Steam rewards. So it'll show you how much you have here in your wallet. This general deposit rate changes constantly based on the total amount of banked Steam. What we're impressed with is that we've added about 15 to 20% in banked Steam. That means people holding Steam in their Hedera wallet just since July the 1st, since we announced our banking rewards overview. So what we do is every day we'll send out a reward for the general fund. And that reward is based on how much we're sharing and how much total is banked. From there, we'll determine the general deposit rate, and you'll get a daily bit of Steam in your wallet. In addition to that, we have rewards amplifiers. These are amplifiers that incentivize NFT holders to hold on to those NFTs, as well as to continue to hold Steam in their wallet. Now, each NFT has a different rate, and if you jump in our Discord, you can see the amounts you get. But it's pretty cool that just by holding NFTs in Steam, you can non-custodially stake your Steam and receive daily rewards. So it doesn't stop you from selling your Steam, moving it around. If you move it to a new wallet, you can register that wallet and immediately be back up to speed with our rewards program. And this, we plan on continuing indefinitely. Like I said, we're going to have actual banks in the game. So this is something that will continue from now until hopefully 15 years from now, when I'm tired of working on the computer and just want to sit on a rowboat on the lake all day.
That's awesome. Yeah. And what was kind of the decision process you guys had to incorporate? I mean, the original ethos, Joey, of crypto is obviously the ability to send value peer-to-peer without the need for an intermediary. So, I mean, kind of tying that stuff into the gamification aspects is pretty cool. Is that the thought process, Joe?
Yeah. So, you know, if for those that have been following us since the beginning, we've kind of gamified everything. I'm a big fan of game theory and what are other people going to do, or what are people that are interested in your project, what are they going to do? So we wanted to gamify to incentivize. We knew that we weren't in an ecosystem where we were going to get $15 million handed to us to build out a game on our own time and not talk to anybody while we did it. So we also knew that it was going to be very community driven. Patrick saw this from day one. So when you have a smaller community like we have in Hedera, you have to engage those people. You have to incentivize. We started that from the very beginning with our founders card, and people that jumped on those founders cards early have received amazing amounts of benefits and rewards, and we couldn't have gotten our feet off the ground without those. So we never wanted to take those incentives away. We moved forward. We had several more successful mints, but then it was time to launch the token. And in May, when we launched the token, we wanted to provide a value for all of those people since day one that have held those NFTs, up to people that are first-time holders of our token. We're very clear in that, yes, we have an amazing mobile game that's now available. We have more in the works for add-on games, mini games, while we build the big game. But we wanted to give people value and enjoyment while they waited for us to build the big game. We never want to disappear. You know, if we're gone for a holiday or a few days, somebody's always around to answer questions. We try to never ghost our social medias or ghost the community. So what we realized is that with this banking program and our mobile game that I'm sure Patrick would love to tell you about in a minute, we have something that the community can participate in and actively see every single day their rewards and benefits are growing.
Awesome. Yeah, Patrick, would love if you could tell us a little bit about the mobile game.
Yeah, actually that started more as a fun game where we said, let's build a simple game, combine some existing games like Pac-Man and Temple Run, and let's make something where they can collect some tokens and earn some Steam. But we started doing that for a PC version in Unreal Engine because we already had all the items there. But while we were building, we were saying to each other, okay, but people are going to judge us maybe on this already. So, and it was more of, while we were building, we also saw that it was more of a mobile game. It would have been so much more fun. And it was easier for more people than to also use it. So that's why when we made it into a mobile game, and I kept adding stuff to it because we said, okay, if we do this, then it must be a bit more fun. So yeah, it's a bit on me that it took a little bit longer as well because we kept adding so much to it. But the thing is, it makes a first impression of what you are capable of, even though it's mobile and not PC. And we did find out that Unreal Engine is not perfectly suited for mobile. That's more for Unity, but that's another story. We finished the game here. And now it's on beta, open beta testing for everyone on Android and iPhone. We're now finalizing the claim page where people, well, now they can of course test run it and get in the top 10 charts. But we're finalizing the claim page where you can really also soon get your Steam rewards as well. But it's as Joey said, we're making these games because the main game on PC, that's a very big build. But we wanted to get this community engagement going as well. So these mobile games will keep engagement with the community at the same time that we're building out the bigger game. And we're already lining up the next ones because this mobile game, it's fun, it's nice to play, but it was focused firstly on the community. So it had a whole other start when we were building. And this next game that we're building for the mobile, that will be very much, will have a bigger focus on Web 2 gamers from the start. So it's going to be a very different game. And but we're going to show it, of course, when we have first layouts ready. And so... But it's in the making, and we're planning to extend more there. Also going, because we have a dual token. I'm going to kick it back to Joey here now, because for that we also have a dual token system, because Web 2 players, of course, want to use another way of gaming where you don't want the wallet connect. And I'm saying too much already. Joey, you say something about the dual token system.
Yeah, so we've all heard the argument, Web3 games aren't good for Web 2 gamers, and they hate it, and never shall the two worlds meet. And with good reason, you know, as Web 3 games started rolling out, there is a good argument. As a former gamer and with friends that are huge gamers and nephews and nieces, when you go in to look at some of the older and some of the newer Web3 games, what's the first thing you see is, let's connect that wallet. Well, you know, somebody that's never held a token in their life and they want to check out a game and they're told that they have to connect a wallet. And so maybe they figure that out. And then the next step is, hey, guess what? You've got to buy one of our $50, $100, $300 NFTs to play. That's
yeah, totally
turns people's mouths, right?
Totally turns people away. Yeah.
So we've kind of wanted to flip it around. Why is Web3 gaming good? Like, you hear all the negatives about it. Why is it good? And it comes down to ownership, right? You actually own your assets and everything in the game. And then if you have tournaments and things like that, it's immutably there, so you can always check back and you can keep things fair and ordered and help keep people from cheating. And it takes, for us, the way we see it is, we're taking some of our future profits and we're giving back to those people in the community that own our assets and NFTs and play our game. And hopefully we have more people playing our game for fun than just to earn money, right? Because that's the whole goal, is for people to jump in and say, this thing is amazing. By the way, I've got 15 new NFTs that I can go sell when I'm done using them, or to upgrade. That's the biggest incentive for Web3, is that ownership. With the Web 2 people, what we also realized is we don't need people having to connect a wallet. So we have a dual token system, which is water and Steam. Nobody's had any water yet. Steam is available in the market. It's on exchanges. You can go get it and get it on Saucer Swap, and trade it and have it in your wallet. What water will be the off-chain token that works like any coin or token you get on any mobile game. Roblox, any of their tokens, works just like that. You can find them, you can buy them, you can go in and get skins with them, you can enter contests with them. We have that water token. So in theory, Ryan, you could jump in, join Earthlings, never connect a wallet, play quests in the game, participate in activities, have new skins for your avatar in the game, grow the game that way organically, and continue to play Earthlings and never even think about Web3. What we will do is incentivize those players with the Steam that they may earn in the game, or they may stumble across an NFT skin in the forest or during a quest, and it says, hey, if you want this in your inventory, let us show you easily how to create this wallet, how to manage that wallet, and here's how you move through. Kind of like you've seen with I use them as an example because 100,000 people are using them every month. Karate Combat, their wallet's super user friendly and easy, and we want ours to function the same. That it's almost second nature for people using that interface, and it's not tedious and confusing and scary.
Yeah.
Can I add a little bit to that? So with the wallet integration, it makes sense. More games are now speaking about this, about trying not to go and show wallet first, but something that's not being spoken about a lot is that you actually, if you do have this wallet popping up, you're actually telling gamers, we're a Web3 game. If you don't have a wallet, well, you're not able to join. So you're addressing, for instance, let's say you're on Cardano or on Solana. They have quite big communities, of course. Well, huge communities. But these communities still are so small compared to the Web2 gaming communities. But with a wallet pop-up, you're actually saying, yes, we are just for the Solana boys. So if you're a gamer, well, bad luck. So it's why not address the big community first, which should be your target group, the gamers, and then cool if the crypto enthusiasts were there first and we're already enjoying it. Well, great, but your target group needs to be the Web2 gamers. So that's why we have this dual token system.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You got to get people. I mean, I think I put out a pretty long, arduous post maybe a week or two ago. You have to get people here, right? Get people interested in what you're actually building, whether that's a game or whatever it may be. You have to get people engaging and having fun playing the game. And then it's much easier to be like, hey, if you'd like to increase the amount of interaction you have within this world or within this game or whatever it is, you know, you're already here. Here are some options to be able to do that. I know you guys have 2 other videos loaded up. I want to make sure that we get to them if we can play them real quick here, and then we can maybe
we can go through them, maybe through, it's not a video, but the slide, it's a PDF showing the interface. I would love to show that a little if we can.
Is it this one?
Yeah, because we've been showing a lot of...
If the video is going to lag, just go through this before we end up show up.
Yeah, so we'll give it like 3 more minutes here if you could walk us through this quickly.
Yeah. So you can just scroll down because it's going to be it's not going to be too long. But so the thing is, we're now finalizing. We're putting the dots on the I for the player interface, because we've been showing all these videos with these biomes and showing the world that we're creating. But people want to see, of course, what will the game look like when I'm playing it. So this is almost finalized. We're still changing little things here and there, but the next videos that will come out, I'm not saying it's going to be tomorrow, but we're working on it now, is where you can really see what it will look like when you, the chicken is, by the way, pasted in there in Photoshop, but so Marcel didn't get the screenshot in time but this is just an example for Marcel creating these text balloons also. So we're now really creating finalizing these UI screens. So because this is what people want to see as well, of course. Okay, you're building all this landscape, but what will it look like when I'm playing? So we're now working on this as well. So that's why I put this in as well. We showed, so this is, by the way, the inventory that you see when you are on your plot, because it's going to be different than the inventory when you're walking around. And some of the community saw some of these images already in an earlier stage, but we didn't really get this out yet to the big audience. But it shows that now we're also connecting the programming that Quinten already did to this interface. So the next videos will also show more of this kind of stuff where you really feel the gameplay. So
this is really cool. This reminds me of almost like, wow, for those of us that have been around for a while, the kind of the old school RPGs where you had a lot of ability to like interact. I don't know, Joey, if you remember back on Nintendo, there was a game called like Maniac Mansion, where you had like a huge inventory and you had to like interact with certain things to be able to, you know, get through the game. And this is pretty cool.
That's spot on, because the game's got a little something for everybody, right? We say family friendly all the time. We pound that home, but some of these quests will be very adult tasks as far as having to really use your brain to solve these things and interact. And yeah, there's so much coming. It's so exciting. I wish we could just spill it, like Patrick said, for an hour and just talk about what we're going to do, but then that just gets you in trouble, right?
And this is actual like screenshots of like gameplay, right? So I mean,
yeah, so this is what the game is going to look like. This is when you're
really
in
cool.
the game, and you can pan out, zoom in and out from your character, so you can get closer and stuff. And there's some placeholders still. The pins need to be in a more stylized way for the menu. We'll have some menu items grayed out. If you have a backpack, then you'll have more space and stuff like that. But you need to grow your inventory and grow your strength and capabilities. We don't want to be that Web3 game where you buy your character and boom, you're upgraded to the full. Well, that's not what gamers want. Yeah, of course, some characters have some options and abilities and a higher starting level, but you need to play the game to get even better and more equipped. But yeah, so some items will already have some great features already, yeah.
Well, I think it looks awesome, guys. And like I said, we're testing the bounds of technology on these live X spaces. And I know we're kind of so I'm kind of testing these out to see if 30 minutes is enough time as we move forward with these. But I would love if you guys had any, you know, just quick closing thoughts for us, and I'll get Grelf up here in just a second. And for those of you guys watching right now, we've got Grelf coming up. We've got a DeFi panel and showcase coming up in about 30 minutes or so. And then we've got Acoer for healthcare. And then we've got Dovu and ESG. So, but Patrick and Joey, any closing thoughts you guys have? And let's definitely do this again.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, great. Yeah, some closing thoughts. What we try to do is also at times educate the community a bit. So try to look at what to look at when you jump into a new Web3 project, especially in gaming and metaverse, and ask yourself to look at the long term. Ask yourself the questions. Okay, so if this is a metaverse, what is their plan to have real players in there? Because if you look at Decentraland, just Google it yourself and you'll be astonished that a multi-billion company just has a few players in there. And why is that? So when Joey and I went into this, we're doing this daily now, and you really get another look at these things. That's those thoughts we really like to share with our community, to look at from another angle at any of these projects, and then you'll have a better overview of what works in Web3 and what doesn't. So that's my final point. Maybe Joey has to say something as well.
No, I just want to thank you and all that you and your team do with Ginfinity. The effort and the great work and content you all put out is amazing. Thanks for having us kick this off today and help test the bounds of technology. And there's some amazing and brilliant people following us, and it just goes hand in hand with what you always provide to the people. So thank you so much, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, looking forward to getting you guys on again. The game looks awesome. I think that's the first like gameplay like images that I've kind of seen from you guys. I know we've seen the trailer, so I told you guys a while ago because I'm not financial advice to anybody, but I had I still do have a founder's card through Earthlings and everything else. So I try to engage whenever I can, and you guys are just doing killer work. I know it takes a long time to build kind of a AAA gaming experience, and looking forward to everything that you guys come out with in the near future. So I'm going to hop you guys down real quick, or if you guys can, and then we'll bring you guys on again, and I'm going to get Grelf up here. But thank you to Joe and Patrick from Earthlings. You guys can check out Earthlings at earthlings.land and go play the mobile game, guys. It does exist right now. Look, something in Web3 is actually live. So
Steam Runner, one word, search it in either app store and you can find it. Should have a wolf on the logo.
Awesome. Thank
Was it
you.
one word?
No?
Spacing? Well, we'll
One
see.
word.
Try them
Yep,
both.
one word.
Okay.
Later, man.
See you guys.
Thanks again.
Hey, Grelf.
Wow, who's this handsome guy to the to my immediate left?
I know, right? So how's everything going with you, Grelf? I know it's been interesting. This is the first time that we're trying to do one of these kind of lots of different Hedera builders in one place. And I know you're down there in your stump. We've got about 30 minutes with you or so. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, Grelf.
Well, let's see. I mean, if we're assuming this is the first time anyone's ever heard of me, they're probably, well, pretty confused, I would say. Just speaking to them, it's okay. Don't worry. I ain't gonna bite you.
I'm curious from your standpoint because you are the first meme on the Hedera network. And I know you have some pretty strong opinions about the power of community and blockchain and Web3. What do you think the Grelf represents into not just Hedera, but what does Grelf represent for the world?
Well, I think Grelf represents. If I was going to put on my smart glasses, hold on, let me do that. Let me get some smart. Well, let's see here. Let me pontificate on this for a bit. Grelf is kind of a character coin, right? So Grelf is not a typical meme coin. A lot of meme coins are like, oh, look at this fluffy little doggy. Ain't he cute? Or this guy's got muscles and sunglasses. He's so cool. I'm not cool.
Muscles?
Muscles, yeah, right. The ones on top of your blowns. Yeah, I'm not really cute. Or cool, really. But I am a bit of a character, so I try to prioritize that. A lot of meme coins these days try to say, "Oh no, don't worry, we've got utility. We got a thing you could spin a little dial and some lights go off, and you get some." They try to bolt on that stuff. I don't got no utility. It's just fun. It's just a fun little thing with a weirdo like me, and hopefully people enjoy it.
I know you're a strong believer in the fact that community does move the needle, or at least there's got to be somewhat of a middle ground. What are your thoughts on that? As far as and I think it's interesting if you look at meme coins regardless and what that kind of represents in blockchain. It showcases one thing, which it showcases the fact that community can kind of pull together under some sort of a thought process and drive the needle as far as they want to drive the needle, basically. But I mean, I keep talking about needles, Grelf, but I mean, I would love if you could talk maybe about the power of community here for us.
Well, sure. What's unique about Web3, right, is that compared to pretty much any other industry, if you want to get to know somebody who's behind a project, you just pop into the Telegram, pop into the Discord and say, hey, where are you at? And usually they pop up and talk to you. It's very unique, right? And it's definitely an evolution of how brands interact with people. In the space of Web3, community is extremely important for that same reason. You're very connected to them. They're very connected to you. So maintaining that connection is incredibly, incredibly important. And part of the reason I think meme coins can even exist is because if they do have that strong connection, if they do have a strong community, if you are engaging people with fun content over a long period of time, that's enough value for a lot of people to get interested in your project.
Yeah. Did you have a makeover?
Well, I did brush my hair. And I'm a little embarrassed. I figured somebody would notice that I got an eyebrow trim.
Nice. I think it's if we look out across not just Hedera, but kind of the wider crypto space right now. I don't know. Bitcoin, I looked yesterday, is right around like $52,000, $53,000 or whatever it is. it's crazy to just watch like the sentiment shift, you know. I always think it's kind of funny to watch the prices up, technology must be good, prices down, technology must be bad narrative. And without getting too much into like price type discussions, I'm curious, what do you think is going to solve the sentiment problem? Because there's, you know, this is kind of across all of blockchain, all of Web3. We see a lot of real world adoption and things like that, but you know, there's a lot of kind of negativity that exists out there. What do you think would help the negativity aspects? And maybe this is the giraffe. I don't know.
Well, obviously having a giraffe for the entire Hedera community to look up to would fix, I mean, nearly everything. But, you know, people get mad when number go down because they have, you know, monies. They have monies that go down with it. And people happy when number go up because they, well, again, have monies. What I think can help is, eventually things are going to get a little less, let's just say, volatile going forward, hopefully. You know, if you look at markets, typically when a new market or a type of market shows up, it's very volatile for a while. And after a while, things start to settle down. Usually that's because, you know, players exit, things consolidate, and, you know, things get a little more normal. So I would say, you know, that's the first thing, but that's going to take a while. Second thing is, if you can get invested in a certain number of projects that you really believe in, you know, and just kind of take your time and say, okay, you know, this is not going to be something that, you know, makes me a bamillionaire overnight. Hopefully that kind of sentiment stuff can change, but unfortunately I don't see it changing super often. Every time Grelf pumps, I get scared because I know eventually number going to go down. Things go up and down in a volatile market. That's just how it works. And I know people are going to freak out when that happens. They're kind of nice to me when the number goes up, but not really. They're usually just like, make sure it stays up, please. You know, but I have absolutely no control over it. I don't even understand what a cryptocurrency sneeze is, much less what a previous sneeze would be.
Yeah. I've seen you making the rounds, you know, and you're on a lot of different kind of shows. What's kind of your favorite? What are your favorite shows or podcasts or types of things like that in the Hedera ecosystem?
Well, we've got three. So I would say the three best ones are this ones. The other ones is Brandon D. And then the other one is Brandon H. So we got two Brandons and a Ryan. And those are my favorites. I go on Brandon D's show a lot. And he's probably sick of me at this point. But I can't help it because I can just live call in whenever, and then he's forced to deal with me. It's pretty much a perfect setup.
Yeah, he's done. I think so. This is Brandon Davenport. It's Brandon D. Brandon does a space I want to say it's every Wednesday. It's about 2 hours long. And if you, I guess for anybody out there that's ever interested in staying on top of all things Hedera, without any filter, by the way, I mean, this guy goes deep into, you know, not afraid to touch base on any subject.
Oh, he goes deep when he touches base, I tell you. Deep.
Yeah. So this is, yeah, I mean, so he's on episode 132. And this is, I mean, that's just, God, it's like 2.5 years at this point in time that he's been doing a weekly show, which is absolutely just crazy. 2 hours every week. And then the other Brandon, obviously HBAR Bull, which we'll share here in just a bit whenever he comes on, does kind of a great job as well. And I was seeing you get into some serious discussions on these spaces, Grelf. I mean, I know, you know, I know you're not one for sugarcoating, right? So, yeah, I mean, I'm always curious too. Like, I try to take stuff, I guess, a little bit more through the positive lens. maybe touch base on your opinion on just where we've seen growth in the Hedera ecosystem over the past couple of years since you started on your journey, because I know that there's been a ton of growth, a ton of real world adoption, a ton of ton more projects and builders. What sticks out to you kind of the most?
Well, I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me from, I would say, kind of the start of having stuff for the community to do in like 2021 to now is, well, there's been some angy boys, but mostly it's kind of been a bit of a maturing, right? When there was lots of projects coming out in 2021, ain't nobody was doing no due diligence at all. They're just like, Lord, hallelujah, someone's coming to Hedera. Let me buy all their stuff. Oh no, oh that didn't go so well. So these days we got a lot more legitimate projects. We got some legitimate builders, and I think that's something that's a real strength of our community that people, if they're not outside of our community, may not be aware of. We've got a real strength in content creators on our little network. It's you go to other smaller networks that don't exactly have DeFi figured out, and it's, well, ain't nobody making 2-hour live stream videos, I tell you that much. Mostly they'll make a tweet and be like, guys, it's awesome. Everything's so good. We're going to be millionaires. But that's pretty much it. Not a lot of people are actually talking or even critiquing or even like weighing or having discussions about things. It's mostly just kind of the same stuff that we were all seeing a long time ago, but still today. So I think there's been a lot of positive change and maturity in our ecosystem. There's so much to do compared to back then, but it's funny that some people are, well, they feel like it's worse somehow.
Yeah. Oh no, there's a ton more stuff. I mean, there's actual things to engage with. I remember whenever I think when NFTs kind of went live on Hedera, this maybe 3 years ago, something like that, 2.5, 3 years ago. I mean, you literally had people behind the scenes like DMing people and then manually sending funds and manually receiving NFTs. And it was really kind of a cross your fingers and trust-based system. Another guy that does spaces all the time is IPEX. I see him do like a daily space. That's at IPEX _ HBAR. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious, we look across the entire space right now. What do you think's what's gonna be the shift here? Not just for Hedera, but for the wider crypto space. What do you think's gonna catapult us into, the future of, let's call it this cycle, if it is a cycle at all?
Bitcoin needs to go up.
That's pretty much it, right?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. Bitcoin needs to go up, and then everybody will suddenly, out of nowhere, come up with all these logical justifications why now it's all good, baby. Suddenly all the news will hit and they'll be like, oh, well, that announcement's obviously why, HBAR pumped. Looks like people are doing a good job now. Looks like the people at Hedera, they got it figured out these days. It's got nothing to do with Bitcoin, Grandpa Bitcoin dragging us up by our undies. No, we've got it all figured out. This is a logical space. This is a tech-based space. No, the number needs to go up, and then everybody will be a lot happier and will be more willing to receive information.
Are you still trying to get a giraffe? Is that still on the table? I saw that there, is there any traction with the giraffe? I mean, for those that don't know and that aren't aware, you filled out a grant with the HBAR Foundation for a giraffe for all of Hedera, not just for you. But
yes, not just for me. Well, going for the grant with the HBAR Foundation didn't pan out. So I've expanded it to demanding from all of Hedera a giraffe. Now, I have been brought into some behind the scenes meetings with people, and they keep trying to negotiate with me regarding the giraffe. But I'm standing firm. I want a giraffe. I don't want a picture of a giraffe. I don't want a video of a giraffe. I don't want an NFT of a giraffe. I want a giraffe.
What do you think it's gonna?
What?
What do you think that the giraffe's gonna accomplish? Let's say in Hedera land, let's say in the world of Hedera land, you do end up getting a giraffe. Or no, not you, but the community gets a giraffe. What do you think that giraffe is going to accomplish here?
I mean, if you want the secret sauce of the whole thing, here's the deal. Hedera is not the best at marketing, and what I mean by that is they're not the best at taking hold of the tools that they currently have and that currently exist in the wild, weird world of Web3 to market. And I think with the giraffe thing, if the news media people, one of their favorite things to post about is not, look at this new tech from this crypto company, it's going to change the world. That's not their favorite thing to post about. The favorite thing to post about is look at these dumb little crypto babies. They're doing something silly again. That's their favorite thing. So a headline like Hedera buys weirdo giraffe would probably get a lot more people to look at Hedera. Because here's the thing, you can say you're the best tech, you can say you're the greenest, the cheapest, you can say that you've got the most handsome founder. It don't matter if nobody knows what Hedera is. It don't matter. Just exposing people to the fact that we got a name, that we exist, is kind of step number one. And if the opinions on that thing afterwards aren't as important, I mean, you know, people say bad things about Solana, but at least everybody's saying Solana out loud in articles on the internet. We need that kind of thing. And I think maybe kind of a silly PR stunt would be smart. You don't have to connect it to me. You don't have to say, oh, and also buy Grelf. You don't even have to mention me. Just buy a giraffe. And also the benefit is that you have a giraffe at the end of it.
Yeah, so Grelf isn't going to directly be attached to the giraffe. Like, you're not going to be attached to the giraffe.
Well, I might want to get a little saddle on it and you know, maybe run it around a little bit, but that's beside the point. Maybe I would like to caress the giraffe's long, slender neck and ride atop it like some kind of noble savannah warrior. Yes, possibly, but that's not the important part. The important part is that the Hedera community has someone to look up to, and also marketing stuff.
Yeah, I know that Karate Combat, the numbers are absolutely ridiculous with how many viewers. And I put out, like, well, their X Live alone, I remember seeing it was like, I put out a tweet saying it was like 2 million views, and then I looked like 7 or 8 hours later, and it was like 2.8 million views, and I'm sure it's way higher than that now. Do you think that is potentially like the one use case kind of built on Hedera that's really kind of extends beyond all these communities? And not even, you know, I think a big mistake too is that we think about all these things that we're supposed to be interested in crypto and Web3 that are almost like, I don't want to say like recycled, but, you know, really just Web3 siloed type things. But then you look at like all the people, the billions of people out there that aren't in Web3 and blockchain. You think Karate Combat has a shot at kind of actually like it's already mainstream adoption, but to bring people, you know, in a meaningful way into, like, you know, Hedera, the entire ecosystem of Hedera?
So here's the thing that you're touching on, right? Is you don't necessarily need all those people to use Hedera. That's the important part, and I think that's something that has kind of been missing, right, in the direction of marketing, is the priority, right, with the commercials that Hedera is putting on Karate Combat, is to say, let's attract developers. let's attract people to build on the network. No. No. We're not targeting the small, tiny, insignificant subset of crypto blockchain developers that also maybe are watching Karate Combat. They are going to find out the information about Hedera from other sources. That's not where they're getting it from. No, we have a massive audience of regular folks. We don't need them to necessarily buy HBAR. We don't need them to necessarily get on the network. We need them because we're at step 1 now to know what Hedera is, to know what the HBAR is. And the way you do that is not by throwing out some stock footage and saying some boring stuff from like 3 years ago. The way you do that is by catching attention, by grabbing people's attention, making them think, huh? What? You don't need to tout your use cases. The audience that's enjoying Karate Combat, they're not impressed by that. That's not changing any minds. We're at step 1. Karate Combat rules. Seeing people wail on each other is great. A lot of people are gonna like this stuff. We want them to know that the big old H in the middle of the ring means something. And that something is not Hawkstone beer or whatever that other company is that also uses that big H.
Yeah, I remember so I had the opportunity to go to my first Karate Combat event. And I know Brandon HBAR Bull, who's coming on in a second for this kind of DeFi panel, has been a huge advocate for Karate Combat for years. Was telling me about it, and I was just the amount of professionalism, like I can't even really describe it. Like anybody that has the opportunity to go to one of these events, I certainly recommend they do it, because I've never seen anything like that attached to blockchain or Web3 in a way that like it was just so well done. And I remember like there's a couple people behind me that were just like, oh, I heard that this is like blockchain type stuff, and I'm just like, oh man. I mean, huge opportunity. If 2 people randomly standing behind me in the audience are saying that stuff, you can imagine the millions of people online that are kind of watching the same thing. But Grelf, lead us out here. I've got 2 more minutes with you, and you can hang out with us if you'd like. But lead us out here. Thoughts for the future of Grelf or Hedera or the wider Web3 space would be awesome.
Well, one thing is Grelf is going to be the first Hedera meme coin to be listed on a centralized exchange tomorrow. It's going to be listed on CoinStore tomorrow. Yeah. So that's one thing. Also, everybody needs to just start having fun again. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe you think, no, this is dumb, though. If you're not going to leave, if you're going to stay here, try to make some fun where you can. Try to have some fun where you can. Because, if you are going to be here and you're going to participate, you should be having a good time, right? Maybe? I think so. So, that's all from me. And that's what I'll stick with.
Nice. Yeah. It's always amazing when we see battles and arguments on X or on Twitter or whatever it is, where it's like, look, number one, everybody in every community is looking at this stuff. So it's like, if you want the ecosystem to grow, have at it if you want to kind of argue. But it's also like, arguing over a single piece of pizza whenever, I'd rather kind of like figure out how to, own every piece of pizza in the entire world instead of arguing over this slice. But anyways, Grelf, thank you so much for joining today. This is certainly kind of a test environment for us. And I'm going to get Brandon up here on the stage. Grelf, you can hang out if you want to, or hop down if you want to. And let's get Brandon up here with us as well. Brandon, how's it going?
So many Brandons.
It is that Hedera seems to attract Brandons. It's going pretty good, Ryan. Thanks for having me on.
Good. Yeah. So I know we've got a little bit of a DeFi panel that we're going to be getting into here. I believe we've got Brady from Bonzo that's going to be hopping in momentarily. Swisscoast, which I've never had the opportunity to have on here today. But before we get to those guys, as we let them hop in, maybe tell us a little bit about what you've been doing recently. I know you're busy with all things and multiple different hats throughout the ecosystem. Shark Bites is still alive and kicking. You do such a great job with those. But yeah, tell us about what you've been up to recently, Brandon.
Yeah, it's been busy. You know, I do a few things as you mentioned. You know, I have Twidgel, which is a startup we have on Hedera. Also, you know, working with the HBAR Foundation, trying to make sure all the projects that they're trying to promote are getting the proper attention. And then I also get the opportunity to talk to all kinds of great builders out there. I talked to Grelf a few times, certainly had Brady on with his new endeavor with Bonzo. And it's just really fun to be able to talk to all these people that are so dedicated to building on this network. Some of the stuff that we've been focusing on an awful lot lately is decentralized physical infrastructure. So DePIN, it was a buzzword a little while ago. But there's certainly a lot happening in that space. Just last week, I did an interview with CLSQ. So they're the team that are already launching satellites into orbit with SpaceX, and they're focused on transactional Internet of Things. And then some overlap with another team we have in our space, Neuron. Neuron is initially starting off, they're focused on an aviation use case, so tracking drones and aircraft and things like that. But once you have those sensors deployed, you can use them for pretty much anything. So you can use them for autonomous vehicles or smart cities or whatever it may be. And both of those teams, both CLSQ and Neuron, to incentivize their decentralized communities, are going to have HTS tokens. So it's going to go pretty much right up the alley of what we're talking about today, because there's so much crossover between these different verticals that we're working on in the Hedera ecosystem.
Yeah, Neuron was pretty cool. The web, I know we hear Web 2 and then we hear Web 3, and we like to, those of us in crypto and blockchain, we like to invent terms that matter to people. But Neuron's term, Web 2.5, kind of meeting real world businesses where they're at, and the ability to kind of leverage DePIN where you can have kind of the best of both worlds. But that being said, I know that we've got Brady from Bonzo Finance Labs up here today. We've got Swisscoast up here today as well. So why don't we maybe do some quick intros? I think we're going to be getting into some share screen aspects here, and would love for you guys to walk us through what you guys are building. So Brady, and then Brandon, we can hop back and forth. I know that you're probably a lot more familiar with Swisscoast than I am, but Brady, if you want to give us an intro of yourself, that would be awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. My name is Brady Gentile. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Bonzo Finance Labs. We're a development shop that's contributing to the open source, non-custodial lending and borrowing protocol called Bonzo Finance on the Hedera network. Bonzo Finance is based on Aave v2, and we are set for launch pretty soon here within the next month and a half or so. So very excited about that.
Awesome. And I can't remember if it's Tony, but if Swisscoast, if you can introduce yourself, that way I know how to refer to you. And
Tony, yeah, that's correct.
Tony, that's right.
Yeah. So Swisscoast is a company that exists since many years. Swisscoast made the first private digital Swiss franc in 2018, and is scaling this concept up now on Hedera. We fork the liquidity protocol to Hedera. It's live. I think it's 14 million or 15 million HBARs locked at the moment, and it's growing. And yeah, that's the very condensed summary of what the company is. And we're a team of 5 people, and based in Switzerland, clearly. And basically, it's a Swiss franc on Hedera.
So Ryan, I'll dive into this a little bit. One of the things, Hedera sometimes can be a little bit behind in bringing certain services to the Hedera network. But once we do bring some of these things live on the Hedera network, we really can execute well. We saw that with DeFi in general with our decentralized exchanges. We came out and right off the bat, not only was it really inexpensive, but it was also the fastest DeFi platform that we have. And of course, the one that was highlighted is our marquee one that we have out there, and that's Saucer Swap. But the same goes for the other platforms as well. Well, now we're entering the lending and borrowing space, and that really brings a lot of different things to the fore, and these guys are going to talk about it. One of the things that I like about liquidity and what Swisscoast is doing is they're not just targeting, the initial DeFi space. They're also targeting the entire FX market. So even though they're initially starting off with kind of the proof of concept just in the DeFi space, that has a lot bigger view in the future. And then Brady, with the experience he's had at Swirlds Labs, he was really focused on DeFi from the beginning, and his thoughts and insights around where we can leverage lending and borrowing are invaluable. And I think they're going to have a lot of success once they break into our space.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed 100%, which I think is really cool, which we don't see enough of, and I know Brady, this is kind of a huge passion point for you, is we've got these kind of DeFi primitives and everything else, and the education gap is pretty massive, not only in like the traditional world, but I think the one thing obviously Web3 represents is kind of the first time that like normal people can kind of engage with their own finances in meaningful ways. But even in crypto and blockchain and Web3, how many people just are doing things arbitrarily without really knowing what they're doing? You guys put out maybe I'll share it for 1 second here if I can. But you guys put out a really kind of nice breakdown here, unlocking DeFi 2.0. Maybe walk us through why you guys are deciding to have such a focus. I mean, if anybody clicks on this and goes through it, there is a huge like amount of information in here. Why is this so necessary for you? I mean, why is this important for you to do? Because I don't see many projects doing this. Many projects are just like, let's let the chips fall where they may, and let's let people kind of fall on their face and learn.
Yeah, I mean, huge disclaimer on this.
Yeah.
Absolutely not financial advice in any of this. Our goal in creating this and sort of proliferating it through the community is we took a very protocol agnostic approach, trying to understand how people across Web3, regardless of lending protocol, are using lending and borrowing, and try to sort of encapsulate all of those different strategies into one place where folks can read about what's happening across the rest of the space. And then, whether you're on Bonzo, whether you're using Serio, HLiquidity, whatever, a lot of those strategies are applicable. And like you said, I think the most important thing right now is education for the ecosystem that we've built. We're approaching this thing that we're calling DeFi 2.0. And with DeFi 2.0, there's so many different types of functionalities that are quickly becoming available. Oracle's enabled things like these lending and borrowing protocols that we've got. We've got bridges coming online in a couple months. There's a lot of new types of applications that are being made available, and a lot of people that maybe don't necessarily understand how to take full advantage of the functionalities that these protocols are offering. And so I think it's really important to educate everybody on what DeFi 2.0 looks like on Hedera, even prior to these protocols going live, trying to get them to understand and start thinking in ways in which they can take advantage of these new functionalities. And we saw the same thing with DeFi 1, where Saucer Swap came online, and they were probably the largest advocate of this, and we're trying to follow in their footsteps in the sense that they put such an emphasis on education on how to use decentralized exchanges and supply funds to liquidity pools and swap assets and understand things from like a conceptual perspective of like what's actually happening with these smart contracts on the back end when you participate in these activities, and then finally also like risks involved as part of that. And their team was super responsive. I always had random questions when they first came around, and they were just very quick to help answer those. They provided a ton of content and videos and documentation and other things. And I just, you could build as many protocols and functionalities as you want, but unless you have users adopting it, it doesn't really matter. And so I think it's just getting everybody up to speed is one of the most important things we could do right now.
I think this is an interesting. If I might jump in, and please stop me if you don't want me to jump in. I think this is super important. We find that in our Discord channel that this is the biggest key for retail adoption. I think the education on enterprise side is also super key. You know, they need to understand, you know, what is an immutable protocol. You know, how does DeFi work? What's AMM, and you know, we need to educate both sides, and clearly, if like the problem that we're trying to solve with Edge Liquidity is that the Swiss franc is underrepresented on chain. So our thesis is that at one point some of the volume of forex will be on chain, and it's the biggest market globally. I think 17 trillions per day or something. So it's big, and if some of that will be on chain, the Swiss franc should be represented. Like on traditional markets where it's about between 5 and 6%, and so we have to educate these players that look at these markets, and clearly, you know, they're not going to enter tomorrow, but we do this education in informal talks, in you know, trying to onboard bigger companies or organizations that do have cross-border or treasury management issues that they need to manage, and it's interesting to see that still I'm so a bit frustrated because like I'm in DeFi since a while, and in blockchain since a very long while, that, you know, the concept of atomic swaps has still not arrived at you know, decision making level, C-level companies. And it's like, guys, it's here and it's happening, and it's 24/7. Oh wow, it's 24/7. Yeah, it is. And you know, and so bridging the gap between, you know, applying a value at risk model to an immutable DeFi protocol. This is a lot of educational work on that side too, and I think it is, as you say, Brady, you know, the key to bring adoption to the infrastructure that we're building.
I'm curious from both of your gentlemen's standpoints, and I know that whoever, Brady or Tony, I think that we are going to do some share screen aspects here, and there's kind of a button down at the bottom that's present, and I'm happy to do it too. I'm sure Brandon would be happy to do it as well. So if either of you guys want to walk us through what you guys are building. But I guess from both of you guys' standpoints, like, it seems like to me from the outside in that there's kind of a lot of different things converging at once, where you talk about traditional financial institutions coming on chain and leveraging liquidity directly on chain. You know, but then we also see kind of like verifiable credentials and levels of compliance and the digital identity aspects that are all kind of pulling together. Is it kind of a waiting game for all that stuff to kind of come about in meaningful ways? Is it jurisdictional? At what point do you feel like these traditional financial institutions are going to actually start leveraging DeFi directly on chain?
I think there's certain use cases that, you know, you described earlier as like Web 2.5 that makes sense right now. And those types of use cases, you know, take blockchain technology and augment existing business processes and businesses with that. My personal market thesis is that blockchain tech, and specifically like public blockchains, are such a disruptive and supplemental versus augmental technology that will watch this sector of emerging technology play out the way that we've seen it play out in any other time there's been an industry of emerging tech, where it completely supplants the financial system that we have today, at least in this case. So I think there's going to, at first, be a lot of things where there's the emergence of applications and use cases that compete directly with banks. We're starting to kind of see that, where you've got, you know, USDC is probably a good example that's backed by treasuries. We're seeing like tokenized treasuries and exchanges for that. There's some like glimpses of competition that's being created. But if this plays out the way that emerging tech always has, I do feel like there's going to be a lot more disruption, but I also think it's going to take a lot more time given the sector that's being disrupted in this case. And, you know, a lot of it comes down to not having the sort of peripheral systems in place for an existing maybe legacy organization to adopt this technology in a way where it can really integrate with everything else that's been built. Like, if you're going to extract the fullest value of this technology, I think you have to do so by building from the ground up on this new business model, and then being able to pass that value on to end users. And if you're only sort of taking a little bit of it and passing a little bit of value, I think it's going to be really hard to be able to compete.
Yeah, I'll jump in there as well, Ryan. I mean, we're already starting to see some of it. Verto, for example, is a commodities exchange that's built on Hedera, and they're already actively trading. I'm going to put actually that in the comments so people can kind of take a look at that video on Verto. We had the digital commodities exchange, which is another example. Of course, we have Archax out there, and these are smaller companies, but are being leveraged by the big players as well. And I think that they're being used as a proof of concept. So you see these smaller exchanges do it, and then you're going to have FTSE and New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ all looking at how this is being done on a small scale, and hopefully in the future they're going to pick that up, or they're going to be disrupted. You have the Texas Stock Exchange coming in, and if NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange don't do it, maybe, the Texas Exchange will do it. So, there's going to be those kind of disruptions. We're also seeing some interesting things around, Brady mentioned treasuries. Once you've tokenized something like a treasury, you can enjoy the yield from that, but also because it's a bearer asset, it can be moved around like cash or be used as collateral in something like lending and borrowing, just like cash, while you're still accruing those benefits. So we're already seeing some of the benefits of traditional finance meeting DeFi. So I think it's pretty exciting all around.
Yeah. Do you?
If you look at go ahead. If you look at the wholesale part in Switzerland, like the Swiss Central Bank has a wholesale CBDC, and 2.5% of their bonds are already tokenized. So it's happening on the large scale. Clearly, this is wholesale, but I mean, there will be a lot of actors that will need infrastructure that does scale. So I think, particularly in Switzerland, we have so clear regulations, and everybody knows what is allowed and how you have to act as an actor in the financial market. The adoption, we see it's happening, and 2.5%, there's 1% missing, and then it's 3.5, and then it's relevant.
Yeah, I'm curious from Brady, and maybe you as well, Tony, where if you look at like some of these big like the BlackRocks of the world and Franklin Templetons of the world and whoever else it may be. I think even from like the banking industry, like, do you think that these banks kind of build out their own infrastructure over time? Or do you feel like the people that are building these platforms now maybe, almost like acquired at some point in time? Like, I feel like you have to have really strong forward thinking leadership to be able to actually integrate like in meaningful ways, like with the technology. Brady, you said something interesting, which is like, it is building kind of from the ground up, but the only people really building from the ground up, I mean, and maybe I'm mistaken, are like the people that are here now building it from the ground up. So it's like, are these solutions or platforms over time acquired? Are they integrated? Do they plug and play? I think you alluded to the fact that they're not going to necessarily plug and play as much as it's going to be just like rip and replace. Like, Brady, can you maybe walk us through like there's a lot of intricacies there. I get it, but how do you consider these like traditional incumbents like actually adopting? Are they going to adopt the platforms? Or are they going to integrate? Or are they going to acquire the platforms? How does that kind of play out?
Yeah, I think with traditional finance, especially, they are much more slow moving. They're typically hesitant to a lot of change, especially when it's something that seemingly works. They typically don't change until someone forces them to. I think, probably Robinhood is a great example of that, as a change agent within the financial system and forcing other trading platforms, for example, to go, zero fee and figure out ways of changing their business models to support that. I think with this technology, I mean, my belief is that you're going to have people who are building today. And as we start, as we continue to build, and as there's so many people fighting on many different fronts for many different perspectives of having this technology be more applicable for mainstream adoption, like the standards that are being formulated, the robustness and security of the infrastructure, things on like the regulatory and policy making front. we're inching towards being able to do more with the technology that competes with mainstream, traditional finance. And so I do think that you'll have at some point something that comes along that does directly compete, and maybe it starts with a small use case that is very narrow, but it does directly compete with something that is very grounded in traditional finance. And then that is used as a wedge to be able to expand out into other use cases that sort of knock down the different types of things that are being done by that traditional financial organization. And the disruption typically plays out that way. Like in any other industry that you look at, when you have something that's as disruptive as this, that typically is the way. I mean, that's not to say that like certain existing businesses can't augment what they're doing with blockchain technology. I think there's a lot of good use cases for that, especially when it comes to like HCS with auditable data streams and just making things more verifiable and transparent. Like that's a great use case. But I also think that unless you're sort of building something from the ground up with this new business model in mind, it's going to be really hard to extract the fullest value of the tech and pass that on to users again. So like that's the one thing that I always just keep coming back to, is it's like the ones that'll win are the ones that are able to like in traditional finance, like reinvent themselves or cannibalize themselves the way we've seen historically.
I also think, the question about traditional finance is like, it's a legitimate question because, we all wish to have these volumes and stuff, but you can say, well, there is an opportunity in what we're building and it brings added value to users, and let's build for the users that can benefit from the added value. And clearly we see that there is opportunity for enterprises, but why not also address people that are individuals and that they say, I want an alternative to bank savings or using traditional financial markets because I'm in a country with inflation, or because I'm in a country where the banking system is different from the banking system in Switzerland. Clearly, this is an opportunity. And even if we bring added value to, not the banking system, we bring added value. And I think this is an important point. And we always compare ourselves to Liquidity, which is a super successful protocol. And basically we're saying, look, it brings added value. Whoever wants to benefit from it, go for it. And if you're slow because you're enterprise and you need to go through processes and budget rounds and internal politics and change management, so be it. But the question about, is it going to be disruptive because the technology allows it to be disruptive, or is it going to be incremental because the user have an incremental added value? I'm happy with either of them. I'm just creating opportunity spaces where I say, look, it's a tool, it's out there, we built it, you can use it. It's not our product, we gave it to the community. Anyone can fork it, adapt it, develop it, build on top of it. And so yes, it would be great to have financial markets adopted on Hedera. But I was talking to head digital assets of a very big global company, and he said, we want closed systems. We're not gonna, in the current stage, use a public or even permissionless infrastructure. But okay, that's fine. There's enough players out there that will bring tractions. And
Well,
I still think, that there is sorry, I still think there is a possibility for tipping points and black swan events where, we're there. There's alternatives and it's up and running. It works. It has been proven solid.
I think Tony.
One thing.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Brady.
I think Tony made a good point. He alluded to other countries, and I think going back to this concept of like just the disruptive nature of the tech. There's just like the emergence of maybe sort of green energy solutions. I think it's easier to implement things when there does not already exist infrastructure in place. So, with blockchain tech and like a new financial system, I think, countries that maybe have less of a infrastructure for finance in place, those are probably going to be the ones that can adapt to and change the quickest to this new emerging way of doing finance.
I will say that speaking of refi, Brady, one of the things, Ryan, you mentioned is this going to be where we see like a lot of acquisitions? Are they going to the banks and exchanges going to do this stuff in house? I think one of the places where we are going to see a potential rip and replace is going to be in carbon markets. Talking to Wes with the Sustainable Impact Fund, it really has to be from beginning to end. And when you have one of those systems, which he is trying to build out, it pretty much has to be a replacement. So that's going to be interesting to look at. The next thing I want to get into, Ryan, and I hope I don't. Do you go ahead?
Yeah, to provoke you. So I'm very involved in carbon markets since a couple of years with the foundation. Also have a foundation, and the problem I see there is, the market is working because it is opaque. Nobody has interest in transparency and efficiency. So I think the tilt, the twist there, that can be regulatory, driven. It's like we need transparency and efficiency, but the market drivers, the ones that benefit from the market, they don't want a market to be transparent and efficient at the current state. So that's the only point that I want to make. I love what he's building. We're looking with another company also at The Guardian, because it's great tech. It really, brings the solution to solve a big problem that we have. We have 6 years left to solve the climate crisis, but the market is fighting heavily against it. That's the only point I want to say.
Brandon, I know you wanted to pivot, and I want to share a screen too. So please, your thought in like 1 second, Brandon. But I think this is interesting because, like, Brady, you bring up an interesting point where it's like to utilize the technology, like, if there's not already infrastructure in place, those are going to be obviously kind of maybe the easier wins. I mean, I think a perfect example is that is if you look at the remittance market, if you look at like the SWIFT system right now, and, even like the stuff that Ripple was doing like a handful of years ago, I would argue that Ripple was probably about as close as you could get to the adoption that they wanted to achieve at the point that they basically had a lawsuit slapped on them, which was pretty interesting. But now it's interesting to watch that shift with Swift over time, where it's like, back in 2015, Swift wasn't talking about integrating digital assets or integrating, distributed ledger technology. And then Swift GPI comes out, and then all the integration starts to occur. And it's almost like they're integrating it in ways to make themselves not become non-existent, but it's not like a full reformation of things. And when you think about the people that it can affect, even from a remittance standpoint, like you look at like the gig economy with like workers living in one country, sending money back home to their families, not knowing how long it's going to take to get there, not knowing how much funds are going to clear on the back end of these things. I mean, you would think that that's an easy win for disruption. And maybe that's already occurring, but it's certainly not on like the scale that I would have anticipated looking at this space, even back in 2018 to where we're at now. So, Brandon, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just jumping back to the carbon markets to address Tony's point, actually a couple points that he made. There's going to be pushback across the board, but when you have networks that can bring the transparency that's necessary, the reason why Microsoft didn't get involved with the carbon markets, they wanted to offset all of their carbon, but they got into those markets, and because they were so opaque and they weren't trusted, they weren't going to get involved. And when you have demand of not just Microsoft, but pretty much every company that's out there, you have tremendous potential to take it from a multi-billion-dollar market to a multi-trillion, many trillion-dollar market. And, when you have that opportunity in front of you, the changes are needed. So you do need that transparency if you want to grow to the proper size. And as you said, Tony, there is also going to be regulatory push and pressure coming from governments as well. But, if they don't adapt on all of these fronts, when you have networks like Hedera that are 1,000 times more efficient than Visa, you cannot adopt it if you want, but the ones that do are going to have that kind of an edge. But I do want to shift over a little bit, if it's okay, Ryan, into the DeFi side of things here and get into some of the strategies that can be used with using these lending and borrowing platforms. I've had a great time using HLiquidity so far. I borrowed my Swiss francs. I deposited or essentially put into a smart contract my HBAR. I then paired that with more HBAR in a liquidity pool on SaucerSwap. Then I was able to stake those back on HLiquidity, and I'm getting their HLiquidity token, getting to the point where I become an owner essentially of the HLiquidity platform and the whole decentralized nature, and I get to start to get those tokens as well, and participate in getting some of the benefits of that as well. So that's one strategy that you could follow. But I'm curious, both from Brady and Tony, how you see people being able to participate in your platforms and leverage them to get the most out of it. Brady, if you want to kick it off, I know you have some interesting strategies and ways you see Bonzo Finance being used in the future.
Yeah, I think at the highest level, the way that we're looking at it is that Bonzo Finance is the liquidity layer for the Hedera DeFi ecosystem, in the sense that this is a relatively safe and beneficial way to make liquidity accessible for users, for institutions, and for future applications that are part of DeFi 2.5, 3.0, 3.5, things like perpetuals and futures and derivatives. All of that does rely on a lending protocol and having liquidity in place in order to be able to perform some of those types of transactions and support those protocols that'll eventually come online as part of the progression of DeFi on the network. I think that the lowest hanging fruit for us, at least in the way that we're thinking about it, is the benefits to large token holders, treasuries of token-based projects, market makers, essentially, larger players in the space, I think, are the biggest users of lending protocols if you look at other lending protocols across Web3. And so, again, lowest hanging fruit is talking to token-based projects saying, hey, this is a relatively safe place to supply liquidity, and there are benefits to doing so as part of their sort of treasury management strategy, whether that's HBAR that they're holding or their token in particular. If they supply their token to liquidity pools, that creates a significant amount of liquidity for other users to borrow and utilize. We've had conversations with Swisscoast about this very thing with the Swiss franc, where I think it definitely makes sense as part of their strategy to try and make liquidity as accessible as possible for the Swiss franc, and making that eventually available on Bonzo and in other places as well. And I think that same thing applies to any other token-based project on the network. And I think what it does is it unlocks new liquidity that maybe wasn't previously accessible. It's just dormant. And that's really the biggest benefit I see is, like, you could launch 100 DEXs and throw incentives all day long, and then you'll watch liquidity migrate around from every DEX so that people can harvest yield. But that's not really unlocking new liquidity. It's not giving people a new place to supply liquidity and new mechanisms to do so that's maybe more relatively safe than a DEX. Like, a quick example is like a DEX, when you're supplying liquidity, for the most part, there's a chance of experiencing impermanent loss because it's sort of a two-sided token pool. With lending, there's a single pool, it's a single asset. It's relatively more safe from that perspective, and there's a very strong benefit to projects to be supplying that. It opens up the door to a lot for like market makers and other institutions as well. They're performing various transactions as part of their business models to support the tokens that they're working with or the projects they're working with, and like they'll likely be needing and wanting to use this as well. So we see, although retail will play a big role in it, it's going to be on a smaller scale, I think, than where institutions and larger holders and organizations are going to play, at least with lending and borrowing specifically.
I completely agree, and I think our perspective is like we're a smaller Lego piece really, and we offer clearly something that is interesting, but it only makes sense if we have synergies like Bonzo and stuff like that. So and other stuff that apparently other people are thinking about, building on top of what we did now. So I think we need the whole range of tools in the ecospace to build and attract TVL to Hedera. I think that's one thing. If we can share the other space, maybe the other page, yeah, that one, and scroll down a bit where you can see the ecosystem a bit more. Yeah, here. So basically, yeah, that's an interesting element. So. And I have several hats. On one side, I'm part of the Swisscoast company. We built the code, and it's out there, it's live. And on the other hat I have is I'm a user and a community member that uses HLiquidity. So clearly, and this is not a financial advice, but just an explanation of the power of the protocol is like you can use this protocol to go long without to leverage the exposure without a centralized exchange. And I think this is a very powerful tool just to explain that we don't need centralized institutions because code, immutable decentralized code, can do that. And as a user, I might have this strategy. Now it offers different opportunity protocol. If you like risk, you can open small collateralization. If you say, well, I'm only interested in the revenue the protocol generates, then you stake the HLiquidity. If you say, well, I want to benefit from the forex mapping or the depegging, then you play the role of the pegger, and the protocol is anti-fragile. That's one step above resilient, meaning if it depegs in one side, you can make money, and if it depegs in the other side, you can make money. So there is incentive for pegging for actors on both sides, and I think that's also interesting. And from what I understand in the communication channels that I see, is that's interesting at the moment for users. Clearly, this is manual work. You have to go and monitor, and why not? It could be that someone programs a bot that goes and uses this anti-fragile system to make sure the peg is stable, and that's what I anticipate, that there will be bots for any arbitrage in any system, and that's when it starts to become interesting, because then you will have noise, you will have mapping of forex on chain, and this is where it's going to be interesting.
I agree with that with regards to bots. Specifically for Bonzo, two of the functionalities that we're creating that are more developer focused and sort of bot oriented is around flash loans and liquidation bots. And those are sort of ecosystems in their own right for the Bonzo ecosystem, where developers can come and create liquidation bots that come in and perform liquidations on users where their collateral drops below the amount that they've borrowed. And their liquidation bot operators are rewarded for participating in that to maintain the health of the protocol and ensure that creditors are made whole. But then with flash loans, a big part of that is one of the strategies is around like arbitrage, for example, where you can take out a flash loan, a significant amount of funds, use that to arbitrage between two decentralized exchanges based on the discrepancy between the price of an asset on both, and help create more efficient markets by having that flash loan bot automatically arbitrage between the two dexes, earn a reward, profit for doing so, and utilize Bonzo for that, but then also, again, just create more efficient markets. And so I do see bots being a massive thing that kind of feels untapped right now with regards to the Hedera DeFi ecosystem. We're seeing some bot activity, but I think that as part of our education strategy, at least, it's around developers and it's around teaching them to build these bots that are helping maintain the health. And that does come with risk, though. It's like when you're giving people the accessibility of significant amounts of funds without having to put up collateral, you do open the door to potentially economic vulnerabilities that are found, and a lot of fast change that takes place within the DeFi ecosystem. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. We want to try and make it as safe as possible for not only the protocol, but the users, and then also just the DeFi ecosystem as a whole. When you start adding these new functionalities, it definitely changes the dynamics.
I think one of the interesting elements is the arbitrage from DeFi and TradFi space. What will happen? Will it go one way or the other way? Where that can be also exploited. So if you're let's not say a malevolent actor, but like an actor with a lot of firepower that has an advantage in information asymmetry, then there could be significant moves in one or the other side. And clearly, my wish is that we attract traditional finance to our ecosystem, but it could go the other way around too. So we have to make sure that this cannot be exploited. And I don't know if you looked at risk mitigation in this side, Brady, like what if an actor finds an interesting arbitrage opportunity to take HBAR out of the system and park it in TradFi and make benefit out of this move.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, especially with stable coins being available as liquidity that can be borrowed, there's a lot more that you can do with stable coins just because of the on and off ramps that exist. And so, a great example is the founder of Curve, for example. He collateralized a significant amount of Curve and took out a loan in USDC and used that, I think, in this article I read, to purchase a home, and the asset that he provided collateral, the Curve asset, ended up becoming liquidated. It definitely caused sort of a cascade of effects throughout the DeFi ecosystem that he was participating in. I don't think it was less of a massive issue that I think people were worried it was going to become. It was actually handled pretty well in terms of how that liquidation took place, and the liquidation was spread across a number of different venues to try and have a more minimal impact. But it certainly is something that I think it opens up the door to. And then with stablecoins especially, like I said, the on and off ramps of that make it so that you've got a bridge from DeFi lending and borrowing into traditional finance and cash and whatever it is that you want to use.
And clearly, because it's you could say the risk is higher on, that's the traditional finance view. The risk is higher on a stable coin compared to a central bank bond that is zero risk. So you have to make sure that the higher risk is rewarded higher. Otherwise, you would off ramp to a central bank bond.
Go ahead, Brandon. I know you had something, I think, to add here.
Oh, no, I mean, I just see the potential. There was a few arbitrage opportunities that there was another person that would do them on a very regular basis, and we would contact the other person as soon as we ran out of liquidity. But then he developed a bot, and pretty much the spreads got so tight that I could never take advantage of it. And now the only time he contacts me is when he completely runs out of liquidity, even in his bot. So I stopped paying attention. So I was the other big player trying to do this. But, with this opportunity to be able to tap into borrowing, he doesn't have to contact me at all. So I'll never have any opportunities. But I better get into the bot game if I'm going to participate going forward. But now that makes sense, Brady, to make sure it's easy for those people that are leveraging the bots, because, I mean, that's the way to make these markets as efficient as possible. And that's exactly what we want.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead. The question that I have, it's too open. You can say you don't want to enter the question, but it's like, I think Nobel Prize winner said, humans are not rational actors in financial markets. And we all think, bots and rational and arguments. It's like, where do you feel are we standing there in DeFi? Will rational arguments and rational actors like bots be dominating the irrational community, or where do you see that happening?
I think that sometimes the hard rules that are put in place can create just as good opportunities that people can take advantage of when they get out of hand. I mean, we've seen that happen in markets time and again. So I think there's still certainly opportunities there, and the same will be there in the DeFi space as well, just like in traditional markets. So people still need to be at the wheel every once in a while, or things are going to get out of control.
I think if you have, I mean, at the end of the day, at least my thought process is, if you have tools in place that are really easy to use for people to assess their risk threshold, they're going to use them. I think it's up to these platforms and all the DeFi primitives to actually, make an effort to, just like from the educational standpoint, make an effort with making it really easy to see the amount of risk involved with certain actions that they may be making. And then when you think about the way that bots integrate, I mean, I'm sure in traditional markets, people that are trading and doing X, Y, and Z, they get notifications on their cell phone, X, Y, and Z, if certain things occur. I wouldn't imagine it being any different with DeFi. If I have a risk threshold and that, and I can set parameters to where that risk threshold is approaching, maybe I get a text message or a notification or an alert or X, Y, and Z, so I can go on and be like, oh, I've got to adjust some things here to make sure I don't get liquidated or X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, so that's a big part of our roadmap, and something that we're paying close attention to is where do those risks lie, and how do we, one, simulate that risk for the user prior to them participating in the transaction that they want to do, showing them, hey, by taking this action, this is how it's going to affect your overall health within this protocol. And then the second thing is, like you said, notification systems are really important. It's not something that we have on day one, but it's something that we think is critically important so that folks can say, hey, configuring based on my position that I have and these other various factors of the market, prices of tokens or whatnot, notify me, send me an email, send me a text. Ultimately, would love to be able to have a way to just automate transactions based on these different thresholds that are met. So there's actually no manual intervention needed. It can just be, hey, if this thing happens in this way, I want you to sign on my behalf on this transaction to be able to withdraw my position or repay this loan or do something like that. And so giving people ways of automating and, ideally just reducing their risk through those automations and notifications is critically important. And then also, if they do get liquidated, making sure that they understand what that is. Like if I maybe wasn't the most familiar with it, with lending and borrowing, and I, my collateral happened to drop below the threshold against what I've borrowed, and I come to the page and all of a sudden everything looks completely different because it was liquidated, really wanting to explain to the user, hey, this is what happened, this is why it happened, this is how it happened, and here's how to prevent this from happening in the future if you don't necessarily know. But that's, again, back to education and transparency and trying to get users up to speed with all of these new types of ways of transacting.
May I just quickly present the Dune thing from Liquidity and our dream? So basically, one idea is, I hope that works nicely. Am I presenting yet?
Not yet. If you do share, or if you click present. No, I cannot.
I did.
No.
It takes a while. I got a slow computer. Yeah.
Well, I, for one, hope that the markets stay irrational as long as possible.
Well,
Thanks,
Tony, we'll let Tony know as soon as it pops up. But I'll give an example of how, in traditional markets, how something like a bot or an automated buy order or something like that can end up in a rational result. And the same thing's going to happen in DeFi. And, you think that everything's going to be perfectly efficient. But a few years ago during COVID, oil prices went negative. And people are like, how the heck could oil prices possibly go negative? And, all the oil prices, and we were just talking about that commodities are moving on chain in entities like Verto. And essentially what was happening is it's all set in the futures market, and people had, ETFs that were just automatically buying those futures. Well, if you're buying a future and those ETFs were buying futures, you have to take delivery of that 100 barrels of oil for every single, contract you buy. And does an ETF have the ability to take delivery of oil? They don't. So they're always moving that to the next one, but they had to take delivery. So it was all about storage and trying to find storage. And if the storage isn't there, you have to try to figure out where it is going to come from. So that allowed everybody trying, knowing they couldn't take delivery, they had to sell those contracts no matter at what price, because they knew they couldn't take delivery. So that's where things can get irrational. And obviously, because now we have commodities coming to, physical things coming to on-chain spaces, we could see that same kind of irrationality. And that could happen, of course, in FX markets and any place else. If the players or the bot or whatever's automated doesn't really understand the dynamics, it can get themselves into an awful lot of trouble. And just in time, Tony, we can see your screen now.
Great. It's not loading. I've got some security things preventing. So basically, what if I could wish to have something like Dune on Hedera, that would be great. Basically, you connect the dots to protocols, and then you have nice dashboards where every user can set up his own dashboard. Maybe you saw a little bit popping up. So basically, this is, I think, that would be a good next step also for the entire ecosystem, where I, as a user or a company, can plug some stuff and have a nice dashboard that monitors what I want to see and aggregate data and connect data from different sources on chain, and clearly that's something that we hope that our community is also building for H-Liquidity and the Swiss franc. I don't know, Brady, is that something that you're actively planning on building as well, or do you know maybe Brandon or others that of developments in the Hedera community to have something like Dune popping up?
I have a couple strong thoughts on this. Dune is something that, during my time at Swirlds Labs, was something that I was strongly trying to push for, just because of sort of its ubiquitous nature across Web3. Community dashboards are amazing. I don't know the status of a Dune integration, but I would love to see Dune be available for the Hedera network. I do think there's some people that are in discussions working on that. It's a very nice community-centric data visualization feature that I think we all need, and a great source of truth. And it also puts Hedera on the map, where you can compare things on Hedera relative to things that are happening on any other chain. And I think the more that we can do that, the better. So hopefully a Dune integration is coming. We'll see. The second thing is, yes, analytics are the most important thing. Our overarching mission is to become an economically sustainable protocol, which means we're generating enough fee revenue to the protocol to be able to sustain its operations. And a lot of that has to do with the TVL of the protocol, but then also how much that liquidity is being utilized. That's where the fee revenue comes from. The way I think about metrics is that it is our scoreboard, and we are building right now an analytics page that, to the point that I'm calling it our Bonzo Finance scoreboard, and almost want to design it in a way that centers it around that. I think it's really important to be data driven, and for everybody to have transparency into the health and the top line metrics that are most important for success of the protocol, and bring those people, whether it's community, whether it's Bonzo governance token holders, outside investors, whatever, everybody should be looking to that as a source of truth. And then only then can decision making be done in a way where you're making the decisions based on impacting those top line metrics. And what can we do to ensure that those metrics are the most important ones that we're impacting. And so we will have analytics dashboard. And then the third thing is, I know HGraph.io is working on a number of really exciting things with regards to analytics. Their team is just absolutely knocking it out of the park, and won't give away anything. That's for them to announce. But some things that I've seen are really impressive and sort of fall in line with the idea of Dune analytics, and they even take that a step further with regards to the usability that's going to be made available. So, if you're looking for a project to watch right now that's going to be most impactful, I do think that on the infrastructure and data side of things, HGraph.io is awesome.
And Ryan, just to wrap things up, I just want to do some shameless plugs on some tokens we have. You know, when it comes down to DeFi, it has to, the tokens themselves have to have value. And I do think we have some of the most exciting projects in the space. You open this up talking about Karate Combat. I think that's one of the most exciting things you can do in crypto. Once you get some skin in the game and participate in some of those up-only gaming events, it's absolutely amazing. Our meme coin, we've got Grelf up there, and how many meme coins do you know out there that has somebody that actually comes out and participates in podcasts? And you know, he was calling the fight for May the last time we had a Karate Combat event. We have those D-pin projects that I was talking about out there. We already have satellites in space that are going to be part of that transactional Internet of Things, and they're going to have their SEAL token coming out just this fall. We have Neuron that is also going to have a token to incentivize their users. I think that's going to gain a lot of traction. And then we have the gaming ecosystem. And one of the things with Hedera, as with a lot of the gaming ecosystems out there, it takes a long time for these games to actually come to market. And I think over the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to see a lot of the hard work that has been done, you know, in the Hedera ecosystem with Earthlings and Astronova and Vavel and, you know, even things like Doctor Who Worlds Apart. We have a lot of really good games that are going to be coming to market. So I think that's going to make our DeFi ecosystem that much more vibrant. And it's certainly going to be important to have lending and borrowing around that as well. But, you know, if there are teams that are people out there that are watching that are coming from other ecosystems, the benefits of Hedera, of the speed of the dexes, you don't have to wait around very long when you try to make a trade or supply liquidity. And then you just have these people that are attracted to the Hedera ecosystem that have fantastic ideas and just grind through. And it's been fun to watch over the past 18 months or so, all these tokens come to market. And I think the next 18 months is even going to be more exciting, even though we've had a lot of excitement, you know, in recent months.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, you know, when we get into, you know, when I think DeFi and I think that what everybody's kind of building in this space, I think it really does come down to kind of this, you know, if we look at where these networks were at a few years ago, with the things you could even do with like NFTs or transactions, whatever it may be, and then look at the user experience now compared to then, I think it comes down to like user options, and making, because at the end of the day, anybody engaging with DeFi is, every single person is going to engage with it differently, because every single person has different financial circumstances, different life circumstances, different learning circumstances, you know, and if you make that as easy as possible, and you make that, if you meet the people where they're at individually and give them options, based on their risk level, based on their education level, everything else, that's really when we, you know, start to see this stuff massively being used, at least in my kind of opinion. And Brandon, I wanted to give you a shout out, for those of you guys that don't that aren't aware. Brandon does amazing content on Hedera consistently, weekly updates every single week, alongside Brandon Davenport, which we gave a shout out a little bit earlier. But check out Brandon's updates. Give HBAR Bull a follow at the HBAR Bull. And to, you know, for you to bring on these guests is just amazing. I know this is kind of the first test run at these marathon digital events to allow for us to share a screen and do X, Y, and Z. Brady was one of our first guinea pigs here maybe a week or two ago, and I think we have Brady coming on again next Monday. But Tony from Swisscoast as well would love to talk liquidity as much as possible, all the stuff you guys are doing with Swisscoast. And yeah, just really appreciate your guys' time here today.
Thanks for having us on, Ryan. We appreciate it.
Awesome.
Really appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you.
And I'm gonna get Jim up here from Acoer here in just a second. We've got Acoer, so we're gonna be talking how Hedera is impacting the healthcare industry and the work that Acoer is doing in this space. And then the last half hour, we've got Dovu, so we're gonna be talking ESG sustainability as well. So I'm gonna hop everybody else down here. Anybody else can stay up if you want to as well. Feel free. But I'm going to bring Jim up here on the stage, and this will be Jim's show here for a little while. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Brady. And thank you, Tony. Thank you, Grelf, as well.
Of course.
All righty. Well.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah. Hey, Jim. How's it going today?
Well, it's hard to follow Grelf, but I'll try. I'll do my best.
I hear you. Let me get the formatting back here for a second, so bear with me for a second. 1 second. All right, Brady's still here. I'm gonna kick, and it's you and we've got the background here as well. So I know we're going to be doing some screen sharing today, Jim. I know that you're one of the busy individuals throughout the Hedera ecosystem. I had the pleasure of interviewing you, I think, down at Hello Future Live, and it was in October of last year. So I'm really excited to get into the weeds with all things Acoer. Maybe give us an intro of yourself and a little bit of a background, some of the work that you're doing in the healthcare industry and how that's impacting people.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I do remember our talk in October. It was fun. I appreciate you taking the time. So really, I'm a technologist by profession. I used to be a coder way back in the day, before punch cards, but maybe not that much before. And then I was a technology architect for a long time and built, as an entrepreneur, built a tech business and exited that after, 15 years. And this was about 10 years ago, maybe. And really kind of got into health and health data in particular. And as with most health stories, Ryan, I think that there is a personal element, right? I think most people I know who are actually passionate about health data and innovation actually have a real story. It's not just because there's an economic element. And to give you a perspective, I think you probably already noticed, I know we talked about this, in the US, I think the US healthcare market is $4.3 trillion per year, and is projected to grow to about 6.2 by 2028. And that is huge. That's 20% of US's gross domestic product. So literally 1/5 of everything goes to healthcare. To give you a frame of perspective, I know a little bit earlier you were talking about, some of the things, understanding a small market and how we have to collaborate. But also I think there are opportunities in very, very big markets that are, maybe we just really understand the tip. We just see the tip of the iceberg, but it's actually like 80 or 90% is beneath the surface, and we don't really recognize how big it is. So that's the way I look at, healthcare and work we're doing, and having started 10 years ago with some family issues and really understanding very, very quickly some of the big problems over the last 10 years or so, give or take, really kind of focusing on well, what can I do? What can now Acoer do? And that started working at the CDC as a chief software architect, and working at a clinical research organization, pharma, for a couple of years, and really understanding in depth what happens with the pharma industry. And the last 5 years or so, kind of all in with Acoer and trying to figure out some of these use cases and how can we innovate. And I think going back to your comment about Hedera, it turns out, and Tony mentioned this from Swisscoast, that part of the reason why the carbon market works is because it is opaque. It's because there really isn't, it's not an efficient market like financial services, largely. It's an inefficient market. Healthcare, take carbon industry and multiply it by 100 in terms of opacity, in terms of subsidies by government and ways in which the monies are just not, there's monopolies and oligopolies and on a lot of that money. So patients suffer, physicians suffer, the economic impact is huge. So it's a really, really big deal. So therefore, not just that, but like I mentioned, with the personal reasons, we're excited about, can we make a difference? Can we use innovative technologies like Hedera and cryptography to shed some light on what needs to be compliant and more transparent, speed up certain things such as surfacing health data in a way that's provable and doesn't require many end rounds and those kind of things.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. Anybody that's kind of had horror stories with their health data, and I think I can only really touch base on things that have personally affected me. And I remember getting out of the military and going through the VA process for disability was like a wild process, and it was like honestly, I think if I remember correctly, it was maybe 6 or 8 months. And I was told, make sure that you don't try to put any changes into your health record, because if you do, you're risking resetting the process and all this other stuff. There's like these hugely fragmented processes that occur in the health industry, and like almost this bureaucracy or this hierarchy. And anytime you try to make a change, it kicks it back down the rabbit hole to kind of square one, and you go back through the process again. And it's amazing to me that that's what occurs in like 2024. And I'm sure if that's happening in an organization like the VA, it's certainly widespread to an extent. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
VA actually, Ryan, is probably one of the few examples of like what you would see as like one big system that supports all veterans, though there's actually 2 separate systems that they use Cerner. But yeah, if it happens in VA, just imagine what it's like in a real world with garden variety, if you like, patients, who have their data in many different places. But yeah, it's very much designed. It's really designed because the economic kind of beneficiaries benefit very, very largely this way. But by having these silos and non-interoperability and non-connections, I know we complain about bridges and swaps and interoperability, for instance, between layer 1 networks. But that's a very, very small problem in context of, for instance, your health data and the visceral need for health data to be interoperable.
Yeah, and I would love, I can share screen here, but I would love maybe if you could load it up too, so we can walk through a little bit of some of the stuff that you guys are doing with Acoer. But yeah, I think, I think there's a lot of different angles here too, when we think about how, our health data and the ways that we interact with like the medical systems are going to kind of change over time. And I think certainly the underlying technology, blockchain distributed ledger, plays a huge role, but I also think different converging technologies like digital identity plays a role as well. How do you maintain that kind of provenance from the onset of your data? Like, there's all sorts of things that tie into the weeds here. We still see, I'm sure, in 2024, mistakes that cost people their lives, as far as, data being misconstrued or data not being accurate as far as people's health records are concerned. And one good example of this is like, anytime you go to, I had to take my kids to the dentist, right? And one of my kids switched dentists, and I had to refill out all the forms that I would fill out that I've filled out hundreds of times in the past through my health records and through their health records. Every time it's like we're starting over from square one. And that's amazing to me that we still go through that kind of that process. I'm going to add your screen to the stage here, but yeah.
Let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, we can.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I agree with you. So I know we have limited time, but let me kind of give you a couple of visuals and most of our products are production. We have clients, so I'm happy to actually get into one or more demos. But really, kind of, if you like, at a very high level, our thesis is that and I think we just talked about it, is that health data really is not connected, it's siloed, and really our gig is, can we make it connected? Can we make it usable? And can we use cryptography to show authenticity of it? That's kind of a high level thing. I know Patrick at the beginning, Patrick and Joey talked a lot about usability of Earthlings and the game itself. I am, and Acoer is really big believer on usability, because it's not the question. The question isn't, do you have access to health data, or can you de-silo it? I think the general answer is yes. These days, through the Cures Act, legally you're able as a patient to retrieve your data. There's lots of systems that do have to interact with each other. They don't do it, kind of very willingly. It's kind of a reluctant scenario, but that doesn't make the data usable, right? That doesn't mean that the data can be really trusted, or the analytics or the AI or Gen AI on it can be trusted. And that's really what we've tried to kind of focus on. And if you can see the slide, can you see the slide?
Yeah, we're good.
Yes. Yeah, so this is kind of what I guess circa today, what Acoer is really about. We started at the very beginning, this is like 5 years ago, working on what we now call Health Data Explorer as a product, but it was really around reporting or improving public health reporting, particularly around mortality, people dying, and within that specifically around opioid and substance abuse. Before COVID really took over as the public health kind of discourse that took all of our attention. Opioid abuse was a massive deal. I think in 2020, something like 1 million people had died in the prior 20 years because of it. It has since accelerated. It's gotten a lot worse, unfortunately. So it's a really big deal. Many kind of billions of dollars, probably hundreds of billions of dollars are spent on that problem. And unfortunately, when it comes to reporting, the underlying issue is, the data is owned by the different states. There's like 50 states and 7 large metropolitans. But they all kind of capture the data in their own way. They all report it in their own way. However, it's a national problem, and just like COVID was, and we saw, 1.2 million people die in 3 years. It's a very, very similar kind of thing. So we started with this with state of Alabama and the work, we had done at the CDC. And then that kind of, if you like, evolved into the Acoer platform, where we saw this idea that, yes, we have an app on public health for public health, but can we kind of refactor from it things that can be used for other use cases, such as this pediatric cancer use case with Health Ready, which is an application that we built, that connects patients, particularly their parents, for these pediatric cancer cases, with their communities and exposes data to clinical research. Can we expand this to other kinds of use cases, such as some work we're doing with a partner of ours called Hedera around industrial hygiene and task exposure assessment, so things like this. So that kind of evolved from here into the platform. And then somewhere along the way last year, and this is our last, most recent product, what we call the cryptographic data mesh. We realized that actually one of the big things that is really happening, an underlying kind of issue in big enterprises, but smaller ones too, is that cost of data centralization, taking data, putting on Amazon, very simply speaking, and then doing analytics on it, which is exactly what we were doing. That cost is just getting out of control. So people actually want to not only be able to do analytics on data in a decentralized way, but be able to retain, in the world of healthcare, retain the data in existing validated systems. Because every time you move the data, you have to revalidate the system, and that's very costly. It takes time. So that kind of led into this kind of aha moment about a year ago of we could take this technology called data mesh and add the cryptography we had done and create the cryptographic data mesh. Now it turns out these days, Ryan, I know you've covered this on other spaces, that there's a huge amount of use cases across every industry on AI and generative AI and doing various kinds of accelerated insight from AI. Well, in healthcare, the big concern is that ethical, this idea of an ethical AI practice. So it turns out that by doing this kind of cryptographic data meshing, you can also do decentralized AI, and it can also impute ethical AI practices. So that's kind of that's basically where we're at today as of July of 24. And I'm happy to do some demos, but just wanted to kind of give you a sense for what it is we're doing, what are the kind of use cases we're trying to tackle, and how does it really fit. Ultimately, I think our mission is about improving lives, but there's kind of a sequence. There's a process of, okay, great, we want to improve lives, but how do we get there? And this is kind of if you like, the underlying platform. This is the connectivity, and then an example of an app that we have built.
Yeah, I would love if you could maybe walk us through a demo or so while we have some time here. I think it's really interesting when we think about the ways that AI is going to kind of meaningfully and hopefully ethically affect our lives to streamline some of the stuff that we normally deal with. And I think two areas to me are really interesting when it comes down to how AI is going to inject in. I think, having kids, for me, I think that the educational systems are, mostly bastardized at this point in time, at least in the United States. We always talk about tailor making education based on what's best for each child, and that certainly doesn't happen right now. Where I think there's a huge value proposition to using something like AI to actually tailor make education per child in a way that makes sense. And I think for the healthcare industry is certainly kind of a second one where, you have all these kind of processes that occur that all revert back to basically, us spending money just to get to the point of actually being treated. And I think that if you can, mind the gap there in an ethical way, to kind of just get to the treatment standpoint. I think that that's a huge value add for people where you're not spending all this just arbitrary cost to get to the point of actual treatment. But yeah, I would love if you could share.
Let me do that. I fully agree with you. I'm just going to hop into our Health Data Explorer product. I'm going to log in. We have a decentralized identifier. Did log in as well. You did mention identity is definitely a use case. It's one that we have found in healthcare, Ryan, that is still a little bit aspirational, to be honest with you. There aren't that many people who truly have wallets or truly are managing their own health data. I know Brady mentioned this idea that, we're not getting to own or like have much more management of our financial data. I think most people would counter that health data is perhaps even more valuable. However, the Web3 centric usability isn't really there yet in healthcare, and certainly not for identity. And of course, it gets into all kinds of ethical issues and loss of identity, things like this. All to say, we do have it. We've partnered up with our buddies over at Tune Technologies, and we do use MetaMask, the Snap that we help work with them to develop. But primarily, we use conventional what's called OpenID and OAuth for security. But anyway, I just logged in. I'm logged in as a user. This is a production system, our Health Data Explorer, but I've logged in with one of our test accounts. And you can see that there's a kind of conventional dashboard of workspaces you have access to, a number of files. You can see we've had about 500,000 transactions by this user already. What we typically do is these are the workspaces are basically where you taking your data and doing analytics and things like this. I'm just going to go into this what we call cross USA data set. It's synthetic data, so I'm not going to share with you anything that's personal or confidential. It's all based on real data on this mortality use case and opioids. However, nothing here is personal information, is synthetic. But these are the kind of things that our clients like, is this ability to our clients, to give you a perspective. This, as an example, state of Alabama is one. We're working with several counties in Georgia. We're working with Alaska, some other states. So that's the clients tend to be forensic pathologists, medical examiners, public health administrators. That's what we're talking about. It's not an individual citizen, not for this product. But you can see they kind of go in there and they have a dashboard view. But the thing that really they care about is going and look at the analytics from the data and understanding this is trustworthy and this is the latest. So I'll go in here and let me just say, I'll type in fentanyl. Now I often misspell it. So you can see it cuts across the data immediately, and often our clients come in here and they look at the word cloud, which shows the strength of that. So the search, for instance, by fentanyl toxicity, you can see that 9,000 records is down to 300. And then they look at other kinds of lenses for that data. And we mention many different data sources for this, geocoding and some other like autopsy data. So as an example, you could go and look at demographics. So in this case, let's say I'm going to choose, African-American for this age range, 31 to 40, filters that down. And then another thing that is a very, very useful thing is this idea that you can mesh in, you can see in this case, police department, or let me make that small. So place of death or place of injury. So we're able to kind of mesh in multiple kinds of data, and that actually visually really helps. You can download the data if you wanted to any of these as a CSV file and do additional work on it or what have you. You could print a PDF of whatever you're seeing. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all of this, but this is the kind of thing that typically our chief medical examiner would do is look at, like, knock out some of these other values and look at, for instance, organ mass, and it turns out that there is a high correlation to people dying due to substance abuse and their brain size and heart size being abnormally larger than what is in kind of in published articles. But the thing that I want to kind of get to is eventually you kind of come down to the individual cases. So we went from 9,000 to 42. I'm just going to pick one, like the first one here. So this is where we basically really, and I'm going to show you because I know people are interested. I'm going to show you kind of how we mesh in Hedera. So you'll notice here we call this the Acoer mark, the verified mark. You'll notice here, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so you can see this, that we proactively, every time we go into a case, we basically, as you're logging in, and that's one of the powers of Hedera, we'll look at all the encrypted payload for this, everything you see on your screen, and say, is this still the same as this timestamp from the 27th of February, which is when it was last modified? And the green comes up by itself. If it wasn't, it would be red or it would be amber or something. But they can see it proactively. So we're manifesting Hedera. Really behind the scenes, we know it's Hedera. I'm going to prove it to you in a minute. But our clients don't care about it. What they really care about is this verified green button comes up. And then that means that all this data they're looking at, this is case information. If they're looking at diagnosis, if you're looking at tox data, here that they can trust it. And then what you'll see here is, and this is really, again, power of doing these things with a real idea of like what the usability is, that we have actually brought in 4 different files for this. There's tox data, there's diagnosis data, there's case data, and every one of this is also individually verified with the same approach. So let me, as an example, let me just show you. This is the case data. This is the actual case. So that was last updated on February 27th. You can see it's got 1,500 items, etc. But you'll also notice that there's this transaction ID, and this is a Hedera transaction ID. I'm gonna copy that and go to our own Explorer and just kind of show you that transaction. You'll see this is the transaction, the corresponding public transaction that we did on the mainnet. This is the encrypted payload that was copied. So everything that you saw here, all this information is actually, well, in this case, it was for this particular case file. But the same concept applies across the board. That is actually that there's a cryptographic reference on Hedera. So we love Hedera, and I think this is part of the point of like, why use Hedera? This is a question we're often asked, is because we can do this kind of transaction behind the scenes very, very quickly at a fixed cost, at a low cost. We don't have to, we're using Hedera consensus service. We don't have to do smart contracts. So there are a lot of things that we can do very efficiently at a low predictable cost and very high volume. So all this basically helps our customers get data that they really care about and say, okay, we can trust this data. We can do useful things with the data. I think that's really kind of our ultimately our point is can you look at this information, and is this something that's meaningful to you? This case information and the data and so on. So, and then one other thing I do want to, there's a lot of features here. I'm not going to go through all of it, but I do want to show you that as we rely on this. Brady mentioned this, in his kind of like some of the use cases. You could do real-time auditing. So we are literally doing that. So you can see like this case that I opened in real time is audited in real time. We recorded on Hedera. I could do the same thing that I was just showing to you. Going back to Explorer, you can kind of see this is like literally as we're speaking, this stuff is happening behind the scenes without impeding users' kind of behavior and creating a fuss for them, and then all this stuff that there's a very sophisticated like real-time auditability of everything and the transactions, who did what when. And so it turns out, for compliance, for medical level transparency, that these things are really kind of necessary. And right now, part of this $1 trillion wastage that I was describing earlier in US healthcare, honestly, a lot of it is just basic compliance. Is people not being able to do like simple things to just like what I showed you, never mind the more sophisticated analytics. So I will stop there, but this is one that we think, kind of, it showcases a lot of what we do. And you may have seen this already. Let me see here. This is our Cancer Trials Explorer. So it's the same kind of idea, but the ability for us to surface cancer trials from different sources, and unless, I don't know, this is one that we often, because we're working with folks on cancer and cold exposure research. So, we can cut across, you can see from whatever 20,000 trials to 196 and similar kind of things. So it's, again, we're also doing, just like I showed you before, we're also doing the Hedera cryptography on all the data changes, but basically being able to kind of go up and down and let me pick, I don't know, let's say a recruiting early phase 1. So you can see we're down to, yeah, okay, that wasn't a very good example since there was 0 examples on that. Let me remove that and choose something for which there is actually some results. Let's see, that's right there. Yeah, so there we go. There's like 21 cases. So you can very kind of quickly go and filter down your results. You can find clinical trials. You can kind of see, and again, all of this has been data stamped on Hedera. You can kind of pick one. You can see the correlating additional published articles. You can, if you wanted to, you can go and find it. So part of our, like I mentioned, part of our thinking about innovation is, how do we make data that is already out there, but it really isn't easy to get to, very easy to get to, cryptographically provable, and we can show authenticity, but also make it very easy for people to interact with. Make it super simple. Don't make it, make these things that are just like literally all you can do. All you need to do is click on a link and everything is updated correctly. So that's really, I think I'll stop there because I don't want to run out of time and let you have any questions. But these are examples of the way we're working, and right now we certainly think, particularly around cancer research that we're doing some really exciting work.
I think it's really interesting, and I know we are going to run out of time here, but when you think about what you guys essentially have here and the integration of health data kind of at a high level, even just one example was like, what are the things that you can do with, what are you going to do? What can you do with the data then? So like, what does the compute become? Like, how can you more effectively treat people if you've got all of this data and it's immutable and you've got the provenance aspects to know that it's accurate and that it's real? Then it becomes really interesting to the ways that you combine the aspects of the data to more effectively treat people or showcase that, hey, there's a real problem here in this area of, the United States and this, subsect of this city there's all sorts of things that you can start to kind of envision for the way it comes together. And again, more effectively treat people, eliminate probably a lot of the processes that exist right now with the overhead and the amount of money people are having to spend to get treated. And I think it's really cool. Jim, I would love if you maybe walk us out here before I get Matt up here from Dovu and tell us what you're looking forward to within not only the Hedera ecosystem, the wider Web3 space, the technology, and whatever it may be. Would love if you a few of your thoughts here.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. I think within Hedera, to be honest with you, Ryan, I think you mentioned this at the very beginning. I think this is a time for us to collaborate, for us to, again, nobody should put on Pollyanna lenses and think like things are not, everything is perfect, or that you don't address things that need to be addressed. I think you mentioned I work with HBAR Foundry and other places, and do a lot of work with startups in the healthcare space. I think it is important, though, that to put that into kind of the perspective of we are early. There is small, and people who, actively involved. There should be, this is a time for leaders to stand up, to speak up, but to be productive and to try and come up with ways to improve things as opposed to complain about everything. And I think we've seen a lot of that, right? And I think you intimated about it earlier. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to within the Hedera space. I think, we had people like Brandon, all Brandons, Davenport, Sailor, Hargreaves, all of them are part of the solution. Grelf, Jake does phenomenal job you do. So thank you for this. I think that's really important. In terms of what we're doing in the healthcare space, honestly, I mean, there's a lot of use cases, and we can be distracted by trying to do everything. But there's a couple of critical use cases that we think, particularly around accelerating cancer research, that we think that Acoer, with our products that we have developed, particularly the cryptographic data mesh, which allows us to lower the cost of putting data onto Amazon and things like this, and do ethical AI. We think that there's a really good opportunity to help accelerate clinical research, and we're excited by that.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your time today, Jim. We will bring you guys back on in the near future. Thanks for walking us through all things Acoer and giving us a couple of demos as well. And yeah, look forward to doing the next one of this. I know, let's not make it 6 months or however long it's been next time. I know you guys are super busy. Everybody's busy, but I do appreciate you hopping in and joining us today. I'm going to get Matt up on stage here. And Jim, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So much. I appreciate it.
All righty. We're going to round out a 3-hour kind of live stream here with Dovu. I've got Matt Smithies with us. Matt, if you could give us maybe an intro of yourself, an overview of Dovu here. And you do have the ability to screen share. I can screen share. If not, there's a little present button down at the bottom of your screen. And yeah, in the interim, let's give us a little bit of an intro of yourself and tell us about Dovu.
Well, I mean, I just crept in behind the scenes watching like a snake while Jim was there doing his thing. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to follow up on this? So regardless, thank you for bringing me up. If people out there don't know who I am, I'm Matt Smithies, the CTO for Dovu. And I've been working on the project with them for, I don't know, it's 2024 now. So probably about 6 years. So we've been doing this a while, and our whole focus within the Hedera space is all around sustainability. And so we've just been generally growing with the ecosystem. And so from creating marketplaces, staking platforms, and working with the Guardian community as well. So that's the likes of Wes Geisenberger, who's doing incredible work, leading the space, and the likes of Justin Atwell and Envision and the whole entire team there. And so we're just trying to help where we can and then build up our own products and solutions around sustainability. Yes.
That's awesome. And you guys have had a ton. I mean, I just interviewed Irfan down at Consensus, which was a really good interview. And I have to give you guys a shout out. I mean, I have never, in all of the interviews that we've done, I don't even know how many there've been. I've never seen anybody take one interview and maximize the amount of content that we got from that interview. So huge shout out to the entire team at Dovu for extracting all that stuff. If you look back at some of the milestones you guys have had, I mean, 6 years is a long time, especially in blockchain. And I know you guys have had some notable ones recently, and Dovu is involved in a lot of different things, and you guys kind of have met the people where they're at. So it's not just ESG being the focus and sustainability and everything else, but then there's areas of DeFi aspects that you guys get yourself involved with and everything else. Why has that been so important for you guys to kind of actually take the bull by the horns with the technology and kind of run with it?
So I think there's quite a few statements, questions there. But I guess from our perspective, I must kind of stress that ESG is boring for the most part. It's so enterprisey, and you don't really think about retail. People can buy credits, but what else can you do? And so from day one, it was always on Hedera. It was always around. And don't worry, I'll share my screen because we can show you some cool stuff as well. But basically, from day one, it's always been around building up a staking platform and making it smart contractless, making it kind of liquid staking with no liquid, as in like you just hold your tokens and you can still move your tokens, and just kind of rewarding the community that way, because the community matters in this regard. And we're trying to build something big, but we still want to make sure that the community that supports us can get rewarded every step of the way while we're building out our bigger and grander plans. Because ultimately, what is so special about crypto is that you can weaponize your community when the time is right. When your product is ready and the alignment is right, then you can basically push the accelerator down as hard as you want. And so getting those incentivization platforms in place means that when the time is right, you can just jack up everything and you can bring more people in. And so that's really been a core focus for us ever since day one. And that was probably the first thing we built out. I would urge everyone to give it a crack because it's quite a special system. But we should probably talk about the more interesting Hedera-specific things and AI and onboarding and all those sorts of things, if that sounds good to you.
I am totally down for whichever way you want to take this this conversation and discussion.
All right. Rad. Okay. So earlier in the year, so over the last, I don't know, year, 18 months, ChatGPT became like a bigger and bigger, more prominent technology that everyone was relying on. And one of the big old problems around, this idea of people creating these projects for sustainability is, there we are. Let's do, can I do a window? Yes, let's do that window. Is that how do you help people make their lives as easy as possible when it comes to onboarding like projects? Because the expectation right now, and can you see this? All good?
Yeah, you're good.
Amazing. So one of the big problems is, how do you make this as easy as possible, or how do you solve the first mile? Because usually in this world, if you want to create credits, carbon credits, you need to talk to registries and you need to pay a lot of money. And it means that access to this market is, impossible for many. And so this is our first push, our first kind of production push into how do we utilize AI to generate and create any questionnaire we want about projects. And so you can start from the beginning in this case, but this is just me logged in. But if you want to kind of play with it, you just come in and then fill out whatever questionnaires that you want. And every step of the way, it will help a new project supplier or project developer kind of get started. And it's very intuitive. And it saves every step of the way because, when you're working in the real world, it's not just we have a cool thing, but you need to build so many features in the back of like auto-saving questions. And it's such a small little nerdy quirk, but you need that kind of typeform autocomplete experience.
This doesn't really exist. I mean, even looking across the wider crypto space right now, think about all the processes that somebody has to go through just because they want to build. And it's like, you have to basically run up you have to basically be running a full tech startup with multiple people with multiple professional backgrounds and multiple aspects. And it's like, none of this really exists right now, where it's like, I want to get involved in ESG and I've got this idea and here's the steps that I need to go through to be able to do it. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
And the cool thing here is obviously you could like upload. So the story behind the ducklings is that at home, I basically have an 8-foot walled garden. A wall around my garden that's 8 foot high. And so we have like ducks that lay eggs, and there's literally no way for them to survive unless we feed them. And so we've kind of made this mock little project where we kind of feed the ducklings and have some fun with that. And it's kind of a nice example within this context. And so when you answer the questions, you can also, there's a document that's generated behind the scenes. And this is what it is. And I mean, I don't know if you can see that well, but you can feed this a tiny amount of information, and it provides a document that is so rich, and it kind of positions itself as the role of like a carbon offset or an ecological project expert. And so you can take this document, actually go to your potential verifier or other registries without you needing to know or understand about methodologies or the minutiae of that. And eventually, as this grows, it will advise you on what methodologies from specific sources you could follow.
Wow.
And, yeah.
Well, I mean, you guys are obviously, this is kind of I'm assuming this is one way that AI ties in, is it's kind of learning as more people start, whatever projects they want to start within Dovu, which is really, really interesting.
Exactly. And so we've got a section on methodology and monitoring. And like, obviously, I'm not going to generate the document. It's much faster now. But you can just feed it tiny little snippets of information. And from a sentence or two, it will take that information and extrapolate it and then give it more context. So it's actually readable as a proper PDF with some substance to it. And then from that, you have a method for people to learn and to engage with others without having the anxiety of taking those steps further themselves. Because like, where do you even start in this world,
Yeah, I mean, tools to succeed, right? I mean, I can think of something like this where it's like, for projects that are looking to build. I mean, I look at this and like, the implications from the sustainability standpoint, obviously massive. But imagine something like this existing from like somebody that wants to build in Web3 that wants to fill out a grant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Having a process in place that's learning, that's like, hey, based on previous successful grants, it's learning and it's trying to push you towards that direction. I mean, this would be a massive tool across multiple verticals in Web3. But I mean, we'll nail into the sustainability aspects here as well. But I mean, what you guys have built here is really, really, really interesting and actually helpful. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously this is more nerdy, but like every single one of these items are completely customizable. We can basically go to a registry such as the Gold Standard or Hedera, and we can look at their exact process and basically mirror it within like a platform, but within this view, so that we could say, oh, for this particular registry, maybe they're looking for this information, and then this would be a means for them to automate the process, for them to attract new suppliers, because there's a huge cost and a time effort for like these verifiers or VVBs to actually talk to individuals. And like, the more we can do to reduce that cost and make it easier for people, the better. Yeah. And so generally at Dovu, it's about how do we take sustainability and make it as accessible and as simple as possible, but without being reductionist. And one of the big projects that came out last year was our kind of end-of-life sustainability scrapping program. That was a India government initiative. And so this is through MMCM, and everyone can take a look at this. But the special thing about this project is these audit trails. And this uses the Guardian. And what this means is you could click on any single unit or any single credit, and you could actually see the exact trust chain for, when something registered or was something reviewed by particular actors in the entire chain. And so the assets that are created aren't just assets by one person, but the accumulation of effort by different actors. And In addition to that, so you have the identity, you have all these other pieces, you have this accumulation of effort, but it's also the data. And so we can capture any data we want that is indexable from raw information all the way down for any project, and to make it as easy as possible for not only project developers, but developers trying to build on the Guardian and to use our platform.
Yeah, that's massive. I mean, you think about accumulation of effort and really the provenance aspect and just having kind of that trust chain actually exist. I mean, I've got to ask kind of like, you know, when you have a trial or a real world use case, I shouldn't even say trial, with an entity like the Indian government, I guess I'm trying to get into like, when you have that foot in the door and it occurs and it's successful and people see that it's occurred and it's successful, that, you know, I'm envisioning that that's really the only thing holding you utilizing this technology, utilizing like the Dovu platform back, is just having that small track record, like at least, you know, the track record over time of like actual adoption. So
Yeah,
like once
exactly.
you get a foot in the door with an entity like that, maybe walk us through, is it a lot easier to have conversations with other entities just to be like, here, this is what we've done, this is what's possible?
It is
you get what I'm
easier.
getting at.
Absolutely. I mean, if like the bigger the name is, like for example, the story of this platform similar to ours, Regen Network, if you've heard of them. In fact, can you turn off my? Oh yeah, I can stop sharing now. Yeah,
Yep.
cool. Okay, good. That's great. So there was a platform that's kind of similar to us who has similar ideals, but I think they're on Cosmos, Regen Network, and they're all one of the first to kind of go down this route. And the big name for them that bought their credits was Microsoft. And so Microsoft bought a huge amount of credits from one of their projects. But at the time, Microsoft basically came to the conclusion that there wasn't enough high quality supply to meet the demand. In fact, all the supply that was in the world could barely meet Microsoft's expectation. And I'm sure everyone probably went into this at consensus. Yeah.
I don't believe he got too into the weeds with that specific example. So I mean, it's pretty interesting. So yeah, if you feel free to elaborate.
And so yeah, like they came to this conclusion that there is not enough high quality supply which is verifiable, auditable, and has this layer of trust where the credits aren't opaque, in a sense of you don't need to trust a third party that what has been done has been done. While these other actors, these registries, are highly beneficial to the ecosystem, you know, there has been so much like media attention attacking all these credits. There is so much negative press about the term ESG. Is like, how do we make this process as open as possible and transparent as possible? And so going back to the MMCM India government type play, it makes it easier for us because they're connected to Tata, and Tata connected to us because we had the initial investment from Jaguar Land Rover like back in the day. And so we had that kind of thread of connection, so it was easier to kind of get on board with that. And basically internally, from a product point of view, it's just how do we make things faster and quicker, kind of grow with the team and kind of grow with the Hedera community and the Guardian community and internally. But yeah, it's just trying to make a product that's fit for purpose and just trying to refine it so that to basically, like you saw with onboarding, something that's as special as it can be and unique as it can be.
Yeah, when you think about, I used to do this a lot, and I'm always interested in this, where it's like, you know, layers of connectivity between some of these like incumbent players, where you think about like the Indian government and their connection, and you mentioned Tata, so I'm assuming you mean Tata Consultancy Services. You know, you look at TCS, and I used to do deep dives into those guys and how massive the reach is. And then you look at, you know, I look even a few years ago when they had TCS, I believe it was Quartz, like QUARTZ, which is pretty much their suite of blockchain things. Does that mean like by default, like kind of, is there integration aspects with like TCS courts, or is it like kind of a carryover, or maybe am I digging too deep into the weeds here?
I mean, I can't obviously go into the conversations that we've had with TCS and the strategic things, because obviously, you know, and there's that but there is an excitement of, you know, TCS have a huge amount of clients, and you know the time will come where they need platforms, whether it's Dovu or other actors, to actually support the offsetting for those specific clients, because it's a huge business.
Yeah.
You know, with huge names. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. And I used to do the deep dives like that as much as possible, but I mean, outside of, and I think we kind of alluded to this as well when it comes down to like DeFi, where, I'm a huge fan of looking at platforms or projects that are building out like primitives that like are very customizable at the user level. And that to me is exactly what you kind of just showed me as far as like the conservation aspects, being able to basically plug and play in, here's levels of what I want to do from the ESG standpoint. And then you having the tools that kind of puts it all together so you can actually give these people kind of, or these entities or these businesses, a chance to actually kind of get stuff across the line. I'm curious, any other directions that you want to take it as far as what's coming down the pipeline for Dovu as well?
So, I mean, how nerdy do you want me to get?
We can go as nerdy down the rabbit hole as you want to here. I mean, we've got a little bit of time left here. So
cool.
I think Earthlings alluded to some stuff. So, I mean, any way you want to take it though, Matt.
So the cool thing that will get people excited, all these services that we're building are going to be connected to the token, similar to like HBAR. And so every single action you take, you have to pay with Dovu. Everyone loves to hear that. And that entire system is going to effectively be called the Charger protocol. And so it's almost akin to something like using Chat GPT, where you pay a little bit of money up front and then you just spend that resource. And the same with tokens. So you just put a little bit of your tokens in and you can basically spend that resource while you're interacting with that certain system. What else? There is a lot going on.
I'm curious. Maybe this is a question I have. For those of us paying attention, and you mentioned, not enough supply of high quality carbon credits. And I think this leads me into maybe a little bit of a different formation of the question, but I've been paying attention long enough behind the scenes to obviously realize that like every industry pretty much has these ESG goals, and there's like they're kind of like milestone based on dates. Where if you look at like 2025, there's certain ESG aspects. Really, a lot of the ESG stuff and the green economy stuff that I've seen leads us towards like 2030, maybe even further beyond like 2050, like net negative type stuff. But then it leads me into like, okay, well, if these incumbents are, the banking industry and the financial services industries are like, have these like green initiative, target dates. But then I also look at, tokenization, and they're tokenizing real world assets, and the way that stuff plays in, like, is everything over time going to be tied to measuring the carbon footprint, like including just the process of tokenizing a real world asset? Like, what is the carbon footprint of that?
Honestly, that is,
you know what I mean? Do you get what I'm kind of getting at here? Like, how big does the green economy stuff get? Because I don't think a lot of people understand what's like coming as far as, if everything's going to be if the majority of assets are going to be tokenized, and the technology is not going to stop evolving, and everything's going to be tied to the carbon offset and the green economy aspects anyways, what exactly is coming down the pipeline here, like in the future for, an entity like Dovu, I guess? That's a huge question. I get it. But yeah.
The best way of visualizing it is there are two sides of the spectrum. And so you have this kind of offset side, or the impact activity side, the ecological credit side. And that's to basically like what we're focusing on. So that's someone does an activity and they've done good, and there's some verification there. and an asset is minted, whether it's biodiversity, some kind of carbon emissions reduction, or carbon credit, or removal. But then the other side is the emissions tracking, and that's what you're alluded to. And the emissions tracking side is like basically everything Atma's focused on, tracking all of the things to make sure that corporates and organizations actually have a number of emissions or whatever that's accurate that they can offset to. The emissions side is something that we will likely not be focused on, because if you get that wrong, it's not just a financial issue, but it could be a legal issue. And so whatever system you have for that has to be bulletproof, and it has to be fit for purpose. And not only that, you also have to track all of the non-direct emissions related to products and services, such as like scope 3, such as like you have a product and what are the emissions tracked for that specific thing, all the downstream, like what was the ingredient that went into that, what all the components, what are the individual emissions to go into your individual thing. And so that's a huge task in itself. And that makes up the majority of emissions. And so other projects such as Atma, such as other entities, are really focused in that arena. And so once that number comes to fruition, and it's more confidence, then that's more of a call to kind of come into the opposite space.
Got it. Yeah, it seems like it could really go down the rabbit hole of like when does the work stop, as far as like, you know, building out integrations and building out, you know, connectivity into like the entire tracking process from, because then you could start thinking about like how many more things do we need to really track, like how, as everything kind of comes to fruition, technology gets adopted, everything else. I mean, you could really just keep building and building and building and building and building, and when does it stop? So yeah, Matt, I mean, I'm curious, like anything else that you kind of want to touch base on here with us. I'd love to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from a nerdy point of view, we're all about making the Guardian as easy as possible for people to use, and we're going to be producing assets that are simple to use, or SDKs that are simple to use, as akin to akin to Hedera SDKs. And so I'm excited to share that, but I understand that only a few people will actually understand the implications of those things. But thinking bigger is that we're going in the direction of effectively building a layer 2.
Oh, wow.
And the code name for this layer 2 is Paladin. And it's imagining a world that there could be a foundational platform for any RWA assurance connected to decentralized identity. And it's taken our lessons from sustainability and Guardian and actually building the foundation for a pure on-chain decentralized identity RWA issuance platform where multiple actors can come together to create an asset. And just thinking beyond just Hedera, you could have someone with a decentralized identity on Ethereum, someone else on Cosmos, and someone else on Hedera, and coming together and signing using completely different systems, completely different algorithms to produce an asset. And so that is my big 5-year vision for where Dovu will be. Because then not only is it a sustainability play, but it means every single person involved in, you know, Hedera, the GC, that's interesting, because it's not just I need to learn Hedera technology or smart contracts. I can plug in to a normal development platform that I know and understand to generate these assets. And so that's like the big thing we're focusing on.
Have you guys announced that yet, or is that the first time you guys are talking about that? Yeah.
Hopefully no one's watching.
Yeah. No, I think that's crazy. I mean, and you think about RWA issuance and tokenization, and we don't necessarily hear all the time that, like, I think people just think, people sometimes just often think that, like, yeah, real world assets are coming on chain, but it just happens by, like, by magic. But at the end of the day, like, you have to have, like, decentralized identity isn't just, us and our on-chain identities. I mean, it's these assets. Like, everything has to be verifiable. Everything needs provenance. Everything has unique characteristics. And
not only that, if the current situation I see for a lot of these RWA platforms, and I know there's a lot of it on Hedera, so I'm not trying to upset the status quo or anyone, but you tokenize a thing. How can you be sure that the person that has tokenized that thing actually has the authority to do that? And like for BlackRock, for instance, while there is a partnership there, imagine if BlackRock actually had a signature that actually proved the business relationship on chain. Imagine how huge that would be.
Yeah. I think, we also kind of hear this too sometimes, where it's like, here tokenization just kind of thrown around. And I certainly believe that a lot of the world's assets are going to be tokenized over time, but then we don't necessarily hear about, like, the virtualization aspects all the time, which is like what are you going to do with the tokenized assets? Like, why is an asset being tokenized in the first place? And what's the pull for it to kind of be on chain? So, like, I think that it's going to be really interesting to watch, because, like, I'm always kind of fascinated too, because, like, tokenization isn't a brand new thing in crypto. No. Like real estate, I think, is probably one of the maybe earlier examples that I can think of that we were hearing all the way back in 2018, 2019, maybe even before that. So how does this stuff kind of evolve? And I think the difference now is when you bring up things like DID and decentralized identity, and then it combines in with, like, I mentioned it earlier, like the verifiable credential stuff, and then it combines in with, which types of assets, like, and then it combines in with, like, okay, well, we need a platform for this stuff that ties in decentralized identity, where it makes it interoperable with different ecosystems, and you've got multiple different players that can come together to tokenize. Then it's like, well, which assets are going to be tokenized then? So it's like, where's the provenance aspects? How does it tie into, like, the compliance aspects of, like, do these entities have the power to actually tokenize these things and represent the actual real world asset? We could go down the rabbit hole for probably hours on this conversation.
We could, but there are lots of people out there working on, like, the provenance aspect. So, for instance, we're having conversations with Alan from Filecoin, who's, like, research focused and, like, leading the Filecoin Green stuff, and they're doing tremendous work around just these trust proofs that you can vouch for different people's credentials. So someone could post, like, a public key somewhere, and other people could vouch for that credibility. And if you do stuff like that, then you have multiple people vouching for, like, a particular public key, and it makes the decentralized identity side of things, the actual signature, more, I guess, stronger potentially.
That's really interesting too. I mean, where it's almost like, I mean, it kind of gets into, like, governance aspects, where it's like, I'm always pretty amazed to see, like, governance aspects tied to money instead of reputation, or tied to, like, just an arbitrary amount of coins instead of, like, a reputation aspect. Because at the end of the day, if everybody's going on chain, if everybody comes on chain and all things come on chain and all data, all assets, whatever, over time, there's got to be a level of, like, actually measuring, like, meaningful participation, like actual participation that is, like, tied to what's in the best interest of not only the individual, but the network and the group and all the other things that kind of tie into that, which is pretty wild.
So you mentioned that's exactly the idea behind our staking platform, is that, how do you tie behavior of your network, or active behavior of your network, to benefits? And so we do small things, like, obviously, if you hold an NFT or do certain things, but if you actually buy the credits from the marketplace, you can get boosts on your tokens. And so if you have those codified, I guess, gamification aspects of a platform, then you can just grow that with whatever behavior you're trying to incentivize.
Which is smart because, you know, I think there's a disconnect when you think about, like, you know, technology that affects the traditional status quo, which certainly sustainability is you know, is dealing in a lot of traditional industry verticals, things like that. And I feel like there's still a huge disconnect when it comes to crypto, blockchain, DLT, where these entities, you know, that are running the world, don't necessarily, they're integrating the technology, but they don't know how to meet the people where they're at and actually deal with like communities and retail without even getting into price and speculation, all that stuff. They're like, they don't even know how to like interact with like these people. So when you talk about gamifying experiences through Dovu, which would seem, if I'm standing from the outside in, you know, and I just look at sustainability, I'm like, oh, they're dealing with like some really enterprise, traditional industry type stuff. But then you inject in the gamification aspects, you're meeting the people where they're at. I mean, that to me is, I wish we saw more of that, because I feel like if people did it in a smart way, we would be at a totally different level of adoption with blockchain and DLT than we even are right now in 2024.
But I mean, look, I'll just say, like anything, we've still got a ways to go. Like, it's still going to be an uphill battle for a time, but we're just going to keep pushing out what we're doing, and I guess fight the good fight, if that's the right phrase.
Totally. Well, I'm at 3 hours here, so I would love, Matt, if you could give us I think you've dropped a lot of interesting information here, so I'm always happy to kind of have that exist on our channel, so I appreciate that. But any forward-looking statements you might have here, and for the audience listening, I mean, if you guys like these types of 3-hour marathon share screen type spaces, events, we certainly plan on doing more. But Matt, if you have any forward-looking statements for us, I would love to hear them, sir.
Forward-looking on my life. Okay, all I would say is it's all about stories. With everything that you do, how can you tell the best story that actually resonates with your audience? And that's something we've struggled with for years, and something we're trying to build out and trying to continually to work on. So if anyone is out there building, focus on your story, and that's all that matters. Everything else will come over time, and just keep building. And if you enjoyed my frantic chitter chatter, feel free to buzz Mr. Solomon to get me back on again.
100%. No, yeah, we would love to have you guys back on. If you guys are interested in checking out Dovu, please do. It's dovu.earth. And yeah, Matt, it's a pleasure to talk to you as always. I know we've had a couple of audio spaces maybe last year, but I'm going to give a shout out to the Dovu team. I'll give a shout out to Jim from Acoer. Give a shout out to Tony from Swisscoast, Brady from Bonzo, HBAR Bull for coming on today, Grelf certainly. Who did I do the first half hour here today? Oh yeah, Earthlings, Patrick and Joe. 3 hours is a lot to do these, but I want to keep doing them like this. I think it's pretty cool to share a screen and, again, meet the people where they're at. It's always awesome to see what everybody's building. Matt, it's awesome to see what you guys are building with Dovu as well. And let's do these again. Hang out with me for a second, Matt, as I end this stream to make sure everything ends properly. And to the audience down there, if you guys like these, reach out to us. We'll be doing more of them. I should maybe preface next Monday, the 15th, we're going to be doing our first something similar to this alongside a partnership with Hashpack, which will be cool. I think we have 4 or 5 projects already lined up. Yeah, just so busy all the time. I lose track of days. But thank you so much for everybody that watched. And thank you, Matt, for joining. Hang out with me for 1 second as I end this, and looking forward to the next one.